Chapter 576, Mark and Song Yue's Intimate Moment. Leaving the rest of the tasks to Arc Prime, Mark left the island and traveled to the island of Yang, around 130 kilometers away from the factory, which was usually inhabited by the giant Anaconda King, Yang. But right now, apart from the serpent beast, there was also a wooden house built near the beach of the island. It was a simple wooden cottage built on top of sturdy, featuring a wooden structure with a sloped roof and large windows that let in plenty of natural light. He climbed the staircase and entered the house, revealing a cozy living area attached to a small kitchen and 2 bedrooms with minimum furniture. "Baba." A pleasing voice entered Mark's ears as soon as he put away his footwear. As his head turned aside, his eyes fell upon a baby crawling toward him with a wide smile on his face. "Baba." Mark's face instantly bloomed into happiness as he crouched with his arms stretched forward, Shan Shan. As the 2-month-old baby, who was supposed to be still in a crib, crawling as fast as a spider, a voice came from the kitchen with a commanding tone. "What do you think you are doing, Marky?" It was quite chilling in Mark's ears. He was frozen on the spot. "Lu Zhen, come here now." The baby was frozen in his footsteps and quickly turned around, crawling back to the kitchen at the same pace as earlier. Soon Song Yue came out with a paddle in one hand while carrying the baby through her other arm. Her face looked serious as she looked at her husband. "You stink with blood, gunpowder, fish, and other unpleasant things. Do you want Shan Shan to get sick or something? Go and fresh up first." Once she said what she wanted to, she turned around and returned to the kitchen. Mark was slightly disappointed by her behavior, but he hung down his head and let out a sigh, going straight into the bathroom for the shower. Once he freshened up and went to the kitchen, he saw she was busy cooking with the baby sitting on the floor and playing with the toys. "Baba." Lu Zhen's eyes lit up once again and rushed one more time. This time, Song Yue didn't react and let Mark pick him up and carry him in his arms, taking him back to the living room and started playing with him. Song Yue stood there before the gas stove and increased her grip on the wooden paddle so that it almost snapped it into 2. This man doesn't even give a 10. About 10 minutes later, Mark slowly carried little Lu Zhen into the bedroom and carefully placed him in the cradle, making sure not to wake him up. The rank 10 robot was given the task of gently swinging the cradle. Mark then slowly stepped outside the bedroom and walked into the kitchen, where Song Yue was seen using a broken paddle to stir the soup. He hastened his footsteps and suddenly hugged her behind. "Shats." "Ah," she blushed a little bit but swatted his arms on her waist, clicking her tongue and expressing her displeasure outwardly. Although her heartbeat rose a little bit from happiness. "Don't touch me." Mark slightly loosed his arms and said, "Come on, you are still angry." "Do you expect me to be jumping in joy?" she snapped at him. "It wasn't enough that you imprisoned us here in the name of protection, and now you have gone for 36 hours straight." Well, honestly, I lost track of time yesterday, but I won't give you any excuses that will turn your mood worse. How about something positive instead? Want to hear some good news?" "What is it? Your wedding date is finalized," Song Yue asked in a sarcastic tone. "Well, yes, but that's not the good news part that I'm going to tell you." "Then." "My work is almost done here. We will leave by tomorrow noon." "Really?" Song Yue abruptly turned around to find Mark's face just an inch away from her. As their eyes met each other, her face turned beet red and she hurriedly looked away. "So soon? I mean, you said it will take at least another week or 2. You are the one who was angry with me for the past week, blackmailing me to return you back home, or else you won't even let me touch you. I had to take shortcuts and work non-stop for 36 hours without any sleep at the factory." Mark shrugged his shoulder before tightening his grip over her waist to pull her closer to him and whispered, "I think I deserve a reward, don't you think?" Not now. I need to cook." Song Yue tried to turn around, but this time Mark's grip was tight and didn't let her go, leaning his face forward and playfully pinched her lips. "The soup won't get bad if it cooks for another half an hour unsupervised. So I was wondering, should we give a sibling to Shan Shan?" No way I'm letting you. He's already troublesome enough to deal with." While Song Yue firmly refused to get pregnant once again, Mark didn't react much and just whispered, "Not a problem, I'll pull it out in time. Shameless. Song Yue's embarrassment increased because of the dirty talk from her husband. The sun has just gone down and I. She tried to stop him but couldn't stop herself as Mark went on kissing her neck and caressing her body. Perhaps, due to the significant gap, she only got more aroused as time slowly ticked by. Within no time, both of them were naked in the other bedroom, enjoying their time on the mattress. But the moment didn't last for even 10 minutes as they were interrupted by the baby's cries. Song Yue hurriedly dressed up and went to the master bedroom to handle Lu Zhen's crying, while Mark banged his head against the mattress with a defeated expression with an imaginary chibi inside his head that was having animated tears. After 6 weeks, we got an opportunity again and that was gone in a poof and no matter. She was no longer angry at me and I should be content with it for now. I'm tired. Let's take some rest. The next day morning at Fujian Island. Outside of the facility, the 4 holy beasts, almost in a collapsed state and struggling to get up. All were enveloped by a layer of their respective attribute energies, but their eyes seemed blank as if they were in a state of trance. Mark patiently waited in the sky, staring down at them, as 500 times the gravity mercilessly pulled down his contracted beasts. It lasted for 3 hours, until a beam of light erupted from the dragon's head, shooting to the heavens as it let out a powerful roar. Ding, Qinglong has reached rank 10 master. A notification arrived to Mark, bringing a smile to his face. Good. The azure dragon came back to its senses as it stood straight against gravity and stretched its wings. It tried to fly but couldn't at the moment. Hence, it stared at its master and then spared a glance at its siblings in trance. Not long after the notification, similar scenes occurred one after another. Roar. Ding, Bai Hu has reached rank 10 master. Screech. Ding, Zhuque has reached rank 10 master. Rustle. Ding, Xuan Wu has reached rank 10 master. As the last one also made its breakthrough, Mark finally removed the gravity dome and slowly descended to the island. A blinding flash of light enveloped each of them, transforming into humanoid forms at the same time. However, except for one, none even looked remotely like a human as Zheng used to be. The azure dragon, Qinglong, transformed into a little boy with bluish scales covering his entire body, except for his face, and he had long green hair that was touching the ground. He also had dragon wings on his back. The white tiger, Bai Hu, also transformed into a little boy with pale white skin and messy white hair with black streaks, whiskers protruding from his cheeks, ears resembling a cat, and a tail growing from the back. The black tortoise's appearance was even weirder. Its humanoid body had the scales of a serpent while its face looked like a mixture of a male and a female. If seen from the left side, its face will look like a little girl, but if seen from the right side, one would think it is a little boy. The vermilion bird, Zhu Kui, on the other hand, transformed into a little girl with long scarlet hair, although with feathery wings in the back. Mark threw sets of robes and tunics for them to cover up themselves. He prepared it beforehand, knowing that they would have kid forms when they transformed. How did he know about it? Well, he experienced it with the golden kitten. He had the Zheng and a beast taming book that his sister gave him on his engagement ceremony back then. The rest of the 3 obeyed it while feeling uncomfortable in clothes, but the azure dragon protested while looking at them in his hands. Master, what about my wings? I can't retract them back into my body like Sister Zhu Kui. I want custom made. Just make holes in the back and fit them. Mark clicked his tongue, making an ugly expression of annoyance. The azure dragon was always a rebellious kid, complaining when he stayed at the island in isolation, complaining when he was forced to hunt down the wild flying beasts in the sky at 10 km altitude, resisting his best when it was operated on, and complaining about its freedom of thought when the AI took over its conscious for a forced breakthrough, etc. Chapter 577.1 A Summon from Mark, Part 1. The night before Mark's departure from Yang Island. Helios City, Eastern Sun Kingdom. It was late in the evening. The king of Aoyang dynasty, 13-year-old Aoyang Zhen, was seen in the palace grounds, with a sniping rifle in his hand, and lying on an elevated wooden platform. Lan Jiang, the Eight-Circle Realm expert, his prime minister as well as his guardian, was standing beside him with his hands to the back. Both of their gazes are on the same thing, a wooden target in the shape of a man located roughly about 200 meters away and barely visible to the naked eye under the moonlight. The one that Aoyang Zhen was carrying had its scope as well as its laser sight missing, more like removed away on purpose. Hence, this king was entirely dependent on his eyesight as he aimed at the target. Apart from them, there are a few knights stationed around, but they aren't much focused on what their king is doing. For them, he was spending his leisure time on some kind of weird hobby. Their king seemed to have an obsession with firearms and their ammunition, which he procured a lot, but most of the stock would be sent to the special naval troops that operate those 3 warships and constantly patrolling the sea. Of course, as the prized warriors of the kingdom who honed their skills for a long time, they naturally look down on those who use firearms, terming them as weak. Bang! A loud sound erupted from the rifle, and Aoyang Zhen's arm vibrated a little bit for the nth time, as a bullet escaped the barrel and cut through the air at subsonic speeds. Aoyang Zhen narrowed his eyes, focusing on the target. He saw a hole appeared right on the face. He clapped with a smile. "Your Majesty, your aim is once again up to the mark. You shot the left eye of the enemy." However, Aoyang Zhen responded with a click of his tongue. "It is a bad shot, Lan Jiang. I aimed for the forehead." This kid's only flaw is his obsession for perfection whenever he starts something. Aoyang Zhen took a meaningful glance at the boy for a second and inwardly sighed before stating, "You are not using those 2 things, even in such an environment." What were called again? Yeah, the laser sight and rifle scope, so I guess the reduction of effectiveness can be understood. "There is a difference between being difficult and impossible, Lan Jiang," replied the teenage king, inserting another bullet into the rifle. Aiming at the target once again while pouring his ether energy into his hands, he said, "I aim to turn difficult into easy, not the impossible into possible. And I'm sure that this doesn't come under the impossible category." Bang! Another bullet was fired, followed by his words. This time, due to the layer of ether energy covering his hands, they were steady. The enemy escaped," said Lan Jiang in a low tone. As he took a glance at the king, he saw the teenager was smiling. It was in contrast with his earlier expression even when it was a lethal shot. After a brief pause, he couldn't help but ask, "Your Majesty, did you miss it on purpose?" Aoyang Zhen got up and pointed his finger to the front. "Nope, I did hit the target. Go and take a closer look at the target." Lan Jiang took another look at the human-shaped target. His eyes wandered all over the place but didn't find any other damage. But seeing a confident expression on the king, the Eight-Circle Realm expert had to fly toward it and take a closer look. It was there he found something that didn't exist before. The earlier hole wasn't as uniform as before. It was slightly extended to the right. He touched the spot and turned his head to look at the teenager who turned around to walk away. He aimed for the eye. The kid really was born to wield that long firearm. He quickly caught up to the king and walked with him, praising his skills on the way. He intended to escort him to the king's chamber before taking his leave, but on the way, they were stopped by a knight captain, who informed them that an envoy representing Genesis Enterprises wished to meet him urgently. He added that the envoy was the elf of Western Moon. As soon as they heard that it was the elf, Aoyang Zhen and Lan Jiang quickly changed their paths to the throne hall, which is usually reserved for urgent meetings with distinguished guests or ministers or messengers who want to speak privately. As they entered the place, they saw Sylvandria waiting for them, silently standing alone in the middle of the room. "Greetings, Your Grace." Lan Jiang cupped his fists and bowed to the figure. Aoyang Zhen also followed the suit. After all, it was a demigod standing in front of him. Sylvandria smiled as she waved her hand. "You are the ruler of this land, King Aoyang. You shouldn't bow to anyone on your land, not before a demigod or even an immortal. It is quite disrespectful to your ancestors." Her tone was calm but pleasing to their ears at the same time. Aoyang Zhen replied confidently, Your existence indirectly protects our land from any direct foreign invasion, Your Grace. A protector deserves proper respect from the king on behalf of his people. I'm doing exactly the same." Sylvandria's eyes momentarily widened in surprise before she observed the teenage king for a couple of seconds and gave a nod. "You have a good temperament for your age, King Aoyang. I believe with the right guidance, you will be a good ruler, at the very least, enough for your descendants to be proud of their ancestor." "Thank you for the praise." Aoyang Zhen cupped his fists, maintaining a respectful tone. Sylvandria then told him to take his seat, the throne. Once he sat down, she took her seat and spoke. "Lu Zhen tasked me with a message to each of you. He didn't explicitly say that the message to Lan Jiang had to be spoken privately, but if you wish, I will do that too." Lan Jiang glanced at the teenage king from the corner of his eyes and shook his head. "It is all right. There is no secret that I wish to keep from His Majesty." Sylvandria nodded. "I understand. First, I will pass the message directed to you. In a few months of time, I, Lu Zhen, intend to return to the Lan clan and claim my heirship. Finish your things at Eastern Sun and prepare yourself for the departure." The message came to them like a tsunami, stunning the teenager as well as the old man, for they didn't expect it from Mark. However, the reactions were quite different from each other. While Aoyang Zhen was filled with shock and disappointment, Lan Jiang was filled with happiness. He couldn't stop himself from getting up from his seat, asking Sylvandria for confirmation that he heard it correctly. "Really? Zhao Zhen finally decided to return home. It is indeed a great piece of news." "I'm not finished yet, Lan Jiang." Sylvandria suddenly snapped at him, feeling that he was disrespectful to interrupt the message. Sorry." Chapter 578.2, A Summon from Mark Part 2. As Lan Jiang apologized and sat back, Sylvandria continued. "Secondly, I, Lu Zhen, am going to resurrect the Lan sect. Over the past few months, many techniques were compiled into a book by Mother, Lan Jingyi, and Fu Sheng Yao. I want you to become a temporary elder of the sect and gather prospective disciples in whatever way you can. I also need you to announce to the world that the betrayers will be forgiven if they return to MT. Ku, and help you in the revival of the sect. That is my condition to help you back into the clan." The first part of the message made it seem like he could fly to heaven, but the second part of the message put a mountain on his head, increasing the burden. As a result, Lan Jiang became silent, going into deep thinking. He knew how difficult the task was. Lan Jingyi hates him very much to work with him. Fu Sheng, another disciple from the clan, was the army commander who had to take care of the alliance's security. He won't have time to work with him either. Lu Zhen, Mark, might be the grandson of his brother, but he doesn't know a thing about Lan clan's techniques, and Lan Jiang highly doubt whether his grandnephew would even be willing to learn them, as he had gotten strong enough to even kill demigods. Hence, he had to do it alone. As for the betrayers, the ones he knew were all respected figures at different sects and scattered all over the world. He was sure that they wouldn't return, and it wouldn't be easier for him to track them down too. While the task only said that he had to announce, it was also indirectly asking him to bring them to the sect, even if he had to use violence. Adding on top of that, he also had to take care of Eastern Sun. He had to make sure the Aoyang dynasty would stay secure even after he was gone. There's too much work, and it made him wonder whether it is worth returning home, where he might not be welcomed by his clansmen even after being forgiven. Leaving Lan Jiang in dilemma, Sylvandria then turned her attention to the young king, who was still pondering on how to deal with the consequences. "King Aoyang, the message for you is not that complicated. You have to depart from this place right away with me and reach Lunaris City by morning. Lu Zhen is going to announce something big, and he needs all the members of United Celestial Dominion must attend it." Her message was probably also shocking enough for Lan Jiang that it brought him out of his thinking about his own headache and focus on it. Right away, what is it that Zhao Zhen wants to announce? He couldn't help but ask. Yang Zhen also expectedly looked at the elf. But both of them only received disappointment. Sylvandria shook her head. "I'm not aware, but based on the events that transpired lately, I believe it could be the announcement of the launch of a new firearm, one that could destroy the balance of powers in the world. He would probably offer it to the Alliance in exchange for something. She gazed at the teenager in a serious manner and continued, King Aoyang, I'm really not sure what's going on in Lu Zhen's mind, but the series of incidents that happened over the past few months indicate that very soon, this world will be embroiled into chaos. During the past 3 months, two beasts emerged from the ocean and made breakthroughs in the demigod realm. Now, they have taken over White Tiger Continent Beast Empire completely. Everyone suspects Kun is behind it, and we all know the reason, to maintain the balance of powers. Today morning, there was another incident occurred in the ocean, but it even blocked my perception. I don't know what happened this time. Possibly the Kun has broken through to the Immortal realm. No one knows. People are not aware that Lu Zhen's presence indirectly prevented many things across the continent, because no one could gauge his powers or perceive his thoughts. But once he is gone, everyone with their schemes will come out, especially the ancient sects and dark organizations. If I were you, I'd be prepared for the worst. For a while, silence filled the room as Aoyang Zhen and Lan Jiang were busy digesting Sylvandria's words. Meanwhile, in the Kilin Empire's royal city. So if I were you, I'd be prepared for the worst. Similar words were spouted in front of the Ming dynasty's emperor. Surprisingly, Sylvandria was here too. The conversation between her and Ming Xianji went almost exactly the same as with Aoyang Zhen. But the response from them was quite different from each other. While Aoyang Zhen quietly took her warning to heart and listened to Mark's request order, Ming Xianji neither took her seriously nor followed her to Western Moon. Of course, it isn't that he is not afraid of offending a demigod or something. If he isn't afraid of such existence, there is no way he would seek membership in the Alliance and even go as far as forming a relationship with Western Yan through a marriage alliance, or paying a significant portion of taxes in exchange for the protection. He promised to be at Lunaris City by morning, but did not follow her as he was asked, as he could use a special teleportation formation recently built between his palace and the temples at Western Moon's Palace and Western Yan's Church of Nuwa's Cathedral. As for the other three, Northern and Southern Phoenix, Eastern Sun, the constructions are in place but not completed. As it is merely a prototype, its functions are currently limited. First of all, it is currently a one-person travel. Secondly, it takes a tremendous amount of ether crystals to use these teleportation formations. Last but not least, it only works when the formation is opened from both sides. Since he had no direct contact with Shen Niu, communication scroll, Ming Xianji had to send one of his generals, Wu Shi, to follow the demigod elf's clone to Lunaris City with a letter. As for why he didn't heed her warning, only he knows. Feng City, Western Yan. In one of the alleys of Feng City, the witch and its puppet were seen hiding in the darkness. The old woman had her breath suppressed to the point that she seemed lifeless. Above the buildings, a golden dragon soared in the sky, amidst rain and thunder. As it disappeared from their sight, the old witch finally exited the alley and let out a heavy breath, sighing in relief. Finally, we got rid of that dragon. Things aren't easy here. Publicly, the dragon is on the side of the royal family, but we don't know its relationship with Xi'an. It would be best if I could divert its attention elsewhere while I take care of the target. But before that, I have to confirm his current location. Intruding into the cathedral is not easy. Not to mention the defensive spell inside that will suppress my cultivation. Perhaps I could draw him out instead. Chapter 579.1 Prelude to the War Part 1. It was unlike any other day in the city of Lunaris. All the citizens of the city were given a mandatory work leave. Some of them filled the arena, some of them were chilling inside their homes, and the remaining came to the royal road that connects the palace to one of the city gates, stretching for around 12 km in length. Almost one-third forces of the kingdom, i.e. 50,000 soldiers, were deployed to block the entire concrete road. They stood on either side of the road, blocking everything. But most importantly, at the city gate, 100-soldier unit led by their commander, Eyal/Fu Sheng, was seen standing in a large group with their gazes on the front. The kingdom's general with a couple of his lieutenants was also seen alongside them, instead of staying beside their king. Commander Eyal, who was in possession of Fu Sheng's body ever since the latter died, raised his head to look at the clouds. "I can sense that vehicle's presence." His lips widened a little bit and a mumble escaped from his mouth. "It is almost time." There it is." Soon, the scary-looking black spider ship appeared in the view, and the general immediately shouted, "Chancellor Lu is here." As his sword rose above his head, the soldiers in the line raised their swords one after another. Within no time, every soldier deployed raised their swords, giving the kingdom's sword salute to Mark as the spider ship lowered its altitude to the bare minimum, and Mark got out of the spaceship and stood on top of it. Eyal and his 100 soldiers knelt down uniformly and greeted him at the same time. Zero Squad greets the Supreme Commander. Under Eyal, their name was changed to Zero Squad, which was taken from Mark's previous life. It was the most elite squad of the Federation he was a part of. Mark stared down at the kneeling commander. "Arise, Eyal. You are a demigod. You don't have to kneel down to me." The subordinates don't understand why the Chancellor calls their sovereign Fu with the name of Eyal, but they don't dare to voice out their thoughts and continue to do their job. Eyal then got up to his feet and cupped his fists. "You gave a new life to me, Chancellor Lu, not once but twice. You are also the one we swore our loyalty to. As your subordinate, it is my duty to remind everyone who I stand with." "Ah, yes." Mark was slightly stumped by his answer, but he doesn't want to argue about unnecessary things with this legendary hero of the elven world. "Anyway, what's with this welcome?" He shifted his gaze to the general. The general, who didn't kneel like Eyal's army because of his loyalty toward King Shen Niu, answered, "It is His Majesty's order." He then gestured with his hand to proceed through the road. "All right," Mark nodded and then shifted his attention to the demigod. "Eyal, join me on the spider ship. Zero Squad will follow from behind, participating in this procession." After giving the order, he glanced at the general. "You don't mind it, right?" The general shook his head. "If it is Lord Lu's wish, it is not a problem." "Good, let's go." Mark then gestured for Eyal to jump onto the spider ship, but Eyal responded with a request. "Is it all right if my disciple also joins me on the board?" "You have taken a disciple." Mark was taken aback at once. Surprise was clearly evident on his face. Who is it?" "Eh?" Eyal was surprised this time. "Did you forget that you are the one who told me to teach her the skills of firearms and land sect techniques?" I did it." Mark was momentarily confused, but then he suddenly remembered the event that happened months ago. His eyes immediately wandered, staring down at the soldiers that stood like statues. Well, except for one girl. The 17-year-old was the only one that raised her head and was looking straight at Mark, for a while. Because of the knight's helmet, one cannot see her face, but her actions make her identity almost clear. As their eyes met, she lowered her head, and Mark activated his eyes of God's skill right away, inspecting her details and confirming her identity. Zai Mei. Status suppressed. Race human celestial. Age 16. Rank peak 7 circle, high 8 circle. Spirit path gunslinger. Attribute divine lightning water. Bloodline griffin. Affiliation Kun Empire former / heavenly domain western moon. Description: born as a child of a human and a pure celestial from heaven, the girl was born with divine energy and no limiters. She is the disciple of Eyal and the appointed successor of Zero Squad. Under her master's teachings, Zai Mei also created a new path for herself, Gunslinger, one that can effortlessly use guns and sword magic in battle. Note: she seems to have a huge crush on Master. According to the notes left behind by my creator, a child from Zai Mei and Master will be born with the highest potential among mortals in the entire universe. Shut up, Ark, don't need to mention that. Erase that note. Mark was impressed by her data, but his mood was spoiled by the cheeky note in the end. He coolly spoke to Eyal. "She may join, but only as your disciple, not as my acquaintance." As long as she has feelings for him, Mark would continue to either ignore her or treat her harshly regardless of how much time it passed. She got out of the formation and followed her master, climbing up onto the vehicle. Mark didn't even spare a glance at her and looked straight as the spider ship slowly floated in the air and flew above the road, maintaining a very low attitude. After dropping the ladies at Song Mansion, the spider ship changed its course and went toward the arena where his invited guests and thousands of citizens were waiting for him, although currently watching Meng Tao challenging an orthrus, a two-headed giant hound. This fierce grayed beast is in the six-circle realm, and yet, a mere three-circle realm spirit warrior like Meng Tao is looking to tame the beast, as both of them were imprisoned inside an energy barrier by the mages. Of course, due to his affiliation with Genesis Enterprises and Mark, Shen Niu told the mages that conjured the barrier to save him, in case of an accidental misfortune. Meng Tao was wielding dual firearms, both of them were a handgun. While both of them are ether weapons, the scarlet ether bullets shot out of them don't have the strength to even graze the beast's skin, but the people are witnessing that a six-circle beast was being injured by the energy bullets shot by the challenger. Neither could anyone sense any attribute energy in them, nor could anyone sense their attack strength surpass two-circle. Yet, Meng Tao was seen injuring it. As the two-headed giant hound chased after him, Meng Tao kept his distance and shot a couple of bullets, each from the gun, and focused on running away for the next 30 seconds. This pattern, when repeated for at least 12 minutes, the experts drew out their own conclusions, although none could decipher the true trick behind the success. By the time the spider ship reached the skis above the arena, Meng Tao's battle looked like it was coming to an end. Hence, Mark didn't disturb his moment and quietly watched in the screens alongside his companions, with Eyal's invisibility spell covering the vehicle's presence. Chapter 580.2 Prelude to the War Part 2. The two-headed hound was filled with bullet wounds all over its body, and its movement slowed down a lot, but its fierceness only grew more and more as time passed away. However, Meng Tao kept his cool and calmly handled it, using its anger against itself and continuously wounding it further while trying his best to keep his distance. Eventually, the beast reached its limit and collapsed on the field, midway, and Meng Tao immediately took out the taming scroll and placed it on the ground, pushing his palms on it. Activate. As his ether energy flew into the scroll, the runes drawn on it activated and released magenta-colored energy chains, which shot out toward their target like a bullet and tightly grabbed the beast. The beast resisted a bit, but eventually, it let the spell reach its soul, binding it with his former enemy. Once the chains disappeared, the two-headed beast, with great difficulty, rose to its feet and looked at Meng Tao and bowed, letting out a whimper of submission. As Meng Tao raised one of the guns and stretched above his head with a smile on his face, the crowd erupted in cheers. Kuakiang, 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 Kuakiang. In the sky above the arena, Mark, who was observing the battle, was more baffled by the cheers. He couldn't help but mumble, Kuakiang. When did this guy change his name? Eyal, who was standing beside him, said, Kuakiang, fast shooter, is quite a befitting title for this fellow, Chancellor Lu. Oh, I thought that it was something else. Mark looked away in slight embarrassment and replied, well, I too never expected him to draw out its power and use it in firearms. I guess whether it is the sword or a gun, they are nothing more than a tool to bring out one's ether energy and add transformation. You mean the Killen? Eyal raised his eyebrow. His tone changed slightly. Mark looked at him and said, You don't need to hate the thing that doesn't concern you, Eyal. Eyal was taken aback but then shook his head with a sigh. I'm sorry, can't help it. I have these memories stored in my head. After a brief pause, he added, No matter how I think, the incident was quite suspicious. The Killen was supposed to be an auspicious and benevolent beast. How could it cause unnecessary destruction? Mark nodded. Yeah, I know. There is indeed someone behind the scenes, but then again there's no use in pondering on the matter that ended long ago. Not to mention, Meng Tao's Killen doesn't remember anything, or it's what it claims. Lu Zhen. Zai Mei joined in the conversation after mild hesitation, Is it that same killin' that I think it is? Mark glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. Yeah, so. Zai Mei averted her gaze and slowly said, nothing. It's just that I never thought that someone like Meng Tao had such power. I mean, it is a beast emperor, you know. Isn't a beast emperor a puny mortal in the end? What's so special about them? A scoff escaped from behind her, giving chills to her for a second. Brother Qing, choose your words carefully. I beg to differ, Brother Qing. Apart from the fact that we live for eternity, there is not much of difference in our strength. Humph, Brother Xuan, you think that way because your abilities lie in the water. Once you are out of your habitat, you have to depend on your shield and precognition. But I'm different. I can easily tear apart those puny beast emperors with these claws of mine. It's useless to talk with a half-wit, Sister Xuan. It's not true, Sister Zhu. As the wise, we have the duty to help the ignorants. These noisy individuals. Let me sleep in peace for a while. Roar. Half-wit, you dare. I challenge you to a battle, Brother Xuan. I refuse. That's good. Wait, what, you coward, Graya. Oh, shut up, all of you. Mark couldn't hold back himself anymore as his ears rang with vibrations of their rants. His command returned the silence to the spider ship, and Zai Mei stared at him with her beaming eyes. Wow, my husband is the best. Meanwhile, in the field, after the barrier was removed by the mages, a couple of healers rushed toward the beast on the orders of their king, healing its wounds and bringing it back to its peak state once again. Once they were done with their treatment, Meng Tao took a leap and landed on its back, addressing the audience, or more specifically at one person. Since there is still time for my master's arrival, I wonder if Venerable Song would grace us with his presence and have a spar with me and let me test how stronger have I gotten. He cupped his fists and bowed as several glances shifted to the VIP sections. In the VIP section, King Shen Niu frowned at his challenge. What the hell this brat intends to do right now? He is challenging Venerable Song. Is he out of his mind? Venerable Song, who is he? Fool, you don't know who he is. The Supreme Realm expert on Emperor Shang's side. A mere 3 circle wants to challenge Song Tai. He will die in a second even with Orthrus Beast on his side. Not necessarily, brother. Shenxi is his servant and Song Tai is loyal to Emperor Shang Fu, who is his father. He might play along. Various whispers and murmurs filled the entire arena, but there was no reaction from the man in question. He quietly stared at the young man while stroking his beard, as if he was pondering on how to deal with him. It was then a man flew from the stands and landed in the arena. Everyone saw the man in white robes and hood erect a hexagonal barrier through the smoke he breathed out of the smoking pipe, covering a wide area with the power of the Exalt Realm, 7 circle. The knights and the mages deployed, they were ready to act, but they didn't make a move as the stranger lowered down his hood, revealing to be a familiar figure. As he walked toward Meng Tao, he calmly spoke, Venerable Song is a royal guest of the kingdom. Asking him to spar with you is like you are insulting him. We don't want people to think that our Lunaris is inhospitable, right? Meng Tao developed a frown on his face as he looked at the person. It seems like you want to spar with me, Your Highness. Please, I'm no longer attached to the royal palace. You don't need to call me that, replied the white-robed old man. He piped out a puff of smoke and added, Moreover, we are acquaintances, aren't we? You can just address me as Old Mister as you always had. Meng Tao's frown deepened. Regardless of your detachment to the affairs of the kingdom, Your Highness is still the beloved elder uncle of His Majesty. Touching you is the same as offending the throne. That is why I have never implicated you when you tried to kill my friend. The hatred I have for you is deep enough to kill you if we spar, which will displease my master too. So I don't think this spar is a wise decision. Please return, Your Highness, before I regret it. The entire arena went silent, listening to their conversation. Naturally, it brought mostly negative reactions from the people against the royal family. Most of the citizens thought that the royals didn't change and did as they wished, without any regard for the lives of commoners. The elite individuals, on the other hand, thought differently. Some of them wondered whether this old man was tired of living by hurting a servant of the one who is rumored to be the strongest man in the world. Others opinion that the strong takes what they want. This is the basic rule of the world, and the weak cannot do anything about it but complain. Piping up another puff of smoke, Shen Li let out a chuckle. Let me correct your allegation a bit. I didn't try to kill your friend. I merely absorbed his life force to feed my weapon. Look, he is doing well right now, and I also compensated him with the money. So, your hatred is unwarranted. After a brief pause, he continued, anyways, let bygones be bygones. No use in arguing about it. The reason I'm here is to scout you. I have been gathering individuals like you who weren't blessed with potential in cultivation but incredibly talented in using firearms to create a sect. How about it? If you join me, I will give you the position of an elder. With me backing the sect financially, there is no need to worry about the weapons. In the spider ship floating in the sky in an invisible state, Mark heard them, and he furrowed his brows in displeasure. This man not only tried to kill Chang Bo, and now even daring to steal Meng Tao. It looks like even weaklings think I have gone soft. Chapter 581.3 Prelude to the War Part 3. Meng Tao and Shen Li had their weapons unleashed at each other. While Meng Tao had 2 ether handguns, Shen Li had a giant silver-colored revolver in his hand. They started an intense battle after Shen Li challenged him to a pure gunfighting skill contest. The wager between them is simple. If Shen Li wins the contest, Meng Tao will join him, and if Meng Tao wins it, Shen Li will not only compensate him with 10,000 gold coins, but will also kneel in front of the whole crowd, asking Chang Bo for forgiveness. The rules of the contest are also quite simple. They had to strike their opponent. Whether injured or not, it doesn't matter. Just striking the target once would give them a point. When one of them reaches 100 points, they will be declared as the winner. For fairness, Song Tai himself volunteered to be the referee. Meng Tao mounted on top of the giant 2-headed hound, hopping to give his opponent a tough chance to strike him. But Shen Li had a wind attribute technique that let him fly in the air. Moreover, Shen Li, with his higher cultivation, could conjure an energy barrier that blocks energy bullets coming at him. Meng Tao's kill-in energy bullets could break through the skin, but it is useless against energy shields. As a result, Meng Tao fell into a deep disadvantage as time passed by, and a majority of the people couldn't help but see him in pity, thinking that the prince was bullying him with his superior cultivation. Others felt like Meng Tao was too arrogant for his own good, trying to fight with an Exalt Realm expert with his pitiful cultivation level. Meng Tao's hit count eventually reached the 90s, while Shen Li has yet to be hit even once. It goes without saying that Meng Tao's frustration is at its peak. The match was almost about to end at any moment, and Meng Tao already made his plans on how to hurt Shen Li later on. He knew that he would be defeated at any moment, but since the wager was just on joining him, and not about staying loyal to the prince, Meng Tao decided to take revenge on Shen Li by ruining his goals even while staying beside him. There were only 4 shots left. Bang! As the 97th shot hit him in the shoulder, Meng Tao stopped moving. Shen Li, using his wind attribute mastery, flew into the air, pointed the silver revolver at Meng Tao's head, and spoke, "I hope you get to your senses by now and work hard for me in the future." The entire arena went silent, realizing that Meng Tao had finally given up. Many of them couldn't help but become frustrated by how the fate of a commoner still couldn't escape the noble's hand. Bang! The energy bullet exited the revolver and struck Meng Tao's right knee, causing significant injury. SSSS. Meng Tao hissed in pain, but he stood there in silence, with his head hung down, waiting for the end of the match. Bang! The 99th shot injured his left knee, but Meng Tao refused to bend his knees as Shen Li wished. Now the final turn. Shen Li now had this look of arrogance on his face as he shifted the gun toward Meng Tao's abdomen. Bang! The 100th energy bullet was shot from the barrel, but it didn't reach Meng Tao. Shen Li and thousands of spectators saw the energy bullet disappear midway. Shen Li's eyes widened in the meantime and he looked around him. A spatial barrier. As Meng Tao didn't feel the bullet, He raised his head to look at his opponent, who had his face reddened in anger. Shen Li shouted, "Who interfered in our match?" It was at this moment the spider ship suddenly materialized out of thin air and started descending into the arena, attracting the attention of everyone. In an instant, almost every single spectator stood up uniformly. They recognized the vehicle. "Hey, look, it's Lord Lu's aerial ship. Lord Lu is here, talk about timing. Shen Li is FC'd up. Haha, Lord Lu will now avenge Qi Qiang fast shooter. Nah, he won't, it's a fair duel. Even he doesn't have the right to avenge, we'll see about that." Whispers and murmurs filled the arena. The commoners and the warriors were discussing the arrival of Lu Zhen and the following consequences. Meng Tao gazed at the descending mighty ship that sent shivers down the spine of those weak cultivators and normal citizens who witnessed it for the first time. His feelings were complicated. Master. Meanwhile, Shen Li's hands started shivering, but he tried to stay calm by controlling his breath. Soon, the spider ship landed on the arena, and its rooftop was opened, followed by Mark and Eol flying out of it and staying in midair. "A bunch of demigods," whispered Song Tai in the stands. His voice shook as he said those words and his eyes fluttered, gazing at the spider ship. Shang Fu and other kings and rulers and other important guests who sat around him heard his words, and King Ayang Zhen reacted before anyone else. "Venerable Song, what do you mean by that?" Song Tai replied with a grim face, "I sense 4 more demigods lying in that ship. Most importantly, they are not human." As everyone was shocked and turned their heads to look at Mark once again, the latter slowly flew straight and gazed coldly at Shen Li with his hands behind the back. "You really have guts to lay your hands on my servant, Grand Prince Shen Li." Shen Li gulped his saliva as his eyes met Mark's, and he immediately cupped his fists with a bow. "I have not used any underhanded means, Chancellor Lu. Moreover, Mr. Meng agreed to the duel." Meng Tao hung down his head once again, not intending to meet his eyes with Mark. However, Mark didn't look at him and directly said to Shen Li, "Who is he to join you? His life is never his in the first place. The moment he swore his loyalty to me by making the oath of blood, he belonged to me. If you want to take him away, you shouldn't fight him, but rather it is me who you should fight with. Hence, this duel was never valid." Shen Li was shocked and he argued, almost like a scream, "That's unfair. If his life was never his in the first place, why did he accept it? I didn't force him or anything. I merely put forth a proposition." He stretched his hand toward the audience. "All these people can testify to my words." A pin-drop silence filled the arena at once. Everyone now had their eyes on Mark and Shen Li. Many wonder whether this old man is really bold enough to challenge Lu Zhen, trying to bank on his relationship with Shen Niu, who is Lu Zhen's future father-in-law. Since he is an elder of the royal family, Lu Zhen is bound to forgive him in the end. After all, a servant isn't in the same league as an in-law. However, to their surprise, Mark simply replied, "And why should I care about it? Maybe you are right and Meng Tao is in the wrong, but why should I care?" His words were calm, but they indicated something else to the spectators, especially to the royal guests. As Shen Li trembled at Mark's words, the latter raised his hand to conjure an ice spear with a thought of his mind and further said, "Moreover, you seem to have tried killing my other servant Chang Bo, who is not any less than a younger brother to me, and brazenly admit that you didn't feel any guilt on your actions. You are seriously tired of living, aren't you?" Shen Li was no longer seen as imposed as before when he took a glimpse at the ice spear hovering above Mark's palms, and the latter's words caused fear to every inch of his body. He moved a few steps back involuntarily and felt like he hit some kind of invisible spatial barrier. King Shen Niu hurriedly got up from his seat and spoke using sound technique to enhance his voice just like Mark was doing earlier. "Zhao Zhen, show mercy upon him. He is family." "Silence," Mark roared in response to the request, releasing his aura. His roar caused tremors to the land, shaking the weak souls of the commoners and cultivators alike. Only those with Exalt Realm and above cultivation managed to resist it. "Right now, the one in front of you is neither your son-in-law nor the Chancellor of Celestial United Dominion. It is the President of Genesis Enterprises. So I ask you not to interfere in our business, or else you won't like my response." Shen Niu too shivered, feeling fear from the person he treated him as his own son for the past year. He took a glance at his uncle, who was looking at him for help. The king has already known that Mark has become a demigod. It is the reason why he ordered the soldiers to give him such a welcome. It is also why the kings were forced to visit Lunaris City on an urgent basis. Hence, Shen Niu put away his pride as a king and cupped his fists with a bow in front of his own citizens. "Then, I request to spare his life as the king of this nation. The royal palace is willing to compensate Genesis Enterprises in exchange." Mark stared at him in silence for a few seconds. He glanced at other people and then at Shen Li. "Fine, I'll spare you on account of my company's relationship with the royal family." Just as when Shen Niu let out a sigh of relief and hope returned to Shen Li's face, Mark added, "Destroy your cultivation on your own, and we will let bygones be bygones." Chapter 582.4, Prelude to the War Part 4. Destroying oneself's cultivation is an extremely painful and disgraceful action that one would prefer death. It was even more painful for spirit warriors that has high cultivation levels, and they worked hard for decades to achieve what they are now. Shen Li was a 94-year-old man who reached the Sixth Circle realm more than 20 years ago, but stuck in that realm since then. To achieve the Exalt realm, he cut off his connections with the royal family and spent most of his time researching various cultivation techniques from all over the continent. In the end, he had found a forbidden method of making a breakthrough by sacrificing life force and forcefully turning his normal cells into ether particles. Luckily for him, he encountered Chang Bo and somehow learned through his treasure that this adolescent boy had the werewolf bloodline and had an incredible amount of life force. He became close with Chang Bo and Meng Tao by joining the store as a chef, using a fake name. To further deepen their bond, he picked up guns and learned everything about them from Meng Tao, even volunteering himself as his sparring partner. Eventually, the time comes when Chang Bo is not in protection by the store's guardian robot, and he attacks him with another forbidden technique, absorbing almost 1,000 years' worth of life force. In the end, he made the breakthrough and became the first ever Seven Circle Realm expert of the Shen dynasty. Since his goal has been accomplished, Shen Li, who developed a liking for firearms, decided to develop a sect, which will have firearm warriors that could potentially go head-to-head with other top sects. Since such people were plenty, he was sure that he could make it the biggest sect on the continent. However, while he doesn't lack any money to buy firearms, he does lack skilled experts who could train them. For that sake, he needed Meng Tao on his side. Since his actions against Chang Bo were never reported, he grew confident and tried to push Meng Tao even more, trying to use his revenge against him. He was about to finish his next step too, but Mark's intervention completely turned around the situation. He thought Mark wouldn't make a move on him because of his relationship with the royal family, but never expected this powerful in-law to be so ruthless. As soon as Shen Li saw how Mark silenced his father-in-law, he had already given up on hope. Then, his nephew had to beg the fellow to spare his life. For a moment, it does seem like he could escape, but Mark once again crushed his hope by directly giving him an ultimatum: death or destruction of cultivation. What should he do? Well, there is no route to escape. He was trapped in a spatial barrier, and even life-saving random teleportation scrolls won't work. Shen Li could only take out a pyramid-shaped locket from his storage ring and spoke. "Can I exchange my punishment with this treasure that was passed down from our royal ancestors?" The Sphinx's locket, Shen Niu, whose expression turned into relief by Mark's promise, frowned when he saw the locket. "I thought that it was lost. It was with Uncle Li." "What is it, King Shen?" asked Shang Fu in curiosity. The retired emperor was perhaps the most chilled person in the arena at the moment. Why would he fear his own son when their relationship has already been repaired anyway? Shen Niu answered, "The Sphinx locket was one of the treasures passed by our founder. It is said to have imprisoned an ancient spirit called the Sphinx, which is said to possess unlimited knowledge and even know the secrets of heaven. For every riddle one solves, it will answer any question that's in the mind of the cultivator. One could even learn their fate. Oh, that's a good one, Shang Fu nodded with a smile. In theory, it does sound like a worthy treasure, when Shen Li explained the same thing to Mark. However, Mark simply responded with a statement. The law of spirit warriors says that those who kill the person have the first right to the dead's treasures, over the dead's immediate family. In that case, I don't need to spare you for that treasure. After a brief pause, he continued, moreover, what I'm doing to you is simply giving a punishment. You still have to pay compensation to Chang Bo for stealing his life force. That treasure is a befitting one. After the destruction of your cultivation, you can hand it over to Chang Bo personally and apologize. The elderly prince was so angered that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Just what is it that you want then? Shen Li roared. What good it will do to anyone whether my life or my cultivation is destroyed, Lord Lu? Mark stared at him for a couple of seconds and replied, well, it would certainly satiate my anger. This was supposed to be a joyous occasion, but you spoiled it. You are dead set on unjustly murdering a royal in front of everyone here, aren't you? Shen Li's eyes widened in realization. Mark lessened their distance and looked at him straight in the eyes. What if I want to? His eyes wandered in his surroundings as he put forth a challenge. Who would dare to stop me? The arena was silent. It was as if he said, no one dares to come forward and rescue the Grand Prince. King Shen Niu had to cup his fists toward Shang Fu, asking him to intervene. After all, the murder of a royal in such broad daylight with thousands of witnesses will bring shame to the Shen dynasty. However, Shang Fu could only helplessly shake his head, rejecting his request with an excuse that he didn't have the power to change his son's mind. Not even his wife could stop him. The only person who probably possessed such authority in the entire world is Song Yue, his daughter-in-law. King Shen Niu hurriedly took out the communication scroll and sent a message to his daughter, who was resting at the palace and supervising the preparations for the grand banquet. Meanwhile, Mark stared silently at the Grand Prince, placing his hands behind the back but without dismissing the ice spear, as if he wanted to say, I'm waiting. Shen Li looked left and right and fell to his knees as a last resort. I sacrificed everything, familial relationships, materialism, authority, and even my morals to achieve my goal. I would do anything to keep my life and cultivation intact. If Lord Lu is willing to show mercy upon me, I'm willing to accept slavery too. Uncle, Shen Niu couldn't help but shout. If killing a royal is shameful to the Shen dynasty, shamelessly becoming a slave to someone is akin to insulting every generation of their ancestors. Death would probably be nobler. However, Shen Li didn't seem to care about his family's reputation at the moment. He kowtowed and begged Mark to spare him. Mark was naturally unconvinced. He ruthlessly said, why would I accept a weakling and a wicked person like you as my servant, since you refuse to him? Shen Li's body trembled once again by Mark's words, but then the pause made him raise his head and take a look at the young man, who developed a frown on his face as a dark energy scroll appeared in front of him. Once the message disappeared, Mark changed his words instantly. You took 1,000 years of life from Chang Bo. You shall be his slave for a period of 1,000 years. A 7-circle realm expert doesn't have 1,000 years of lifespan. So naturally, it means that Shen Li will be a slave to Chang Bo until he dies. Thank you for the mercy. Shen Li kowtowed and bowed 3 times, hitting the ground with his head and expressing his thanks. I'll seal his cultivation, Mark said to the demigod who was quietly floating in the air, above the spider ship. Understood, sir. I'll gave a modern military-style salute that Mark was familiar with, and proceeded to seal Shen Li's cultivation, as the spatial barrier was removed. Once the job is done, Mark then takes a glance at his silent subordinate who doesn't dare to even lift his head in shame, Meng Tao. Meng Tao shuddered for a second. Ma, master. He kneeled and cupped his fists, bowing to him. I apologue. No need for it, Mark interrupted him, not letting him finish the sentence. I'll leave him under your supervision. We'll about this later. Yes, thank you for the mercy. As Eyal then transferred Shen Li and Meng Tao to the spider ship where they met four unfamiliar individuals, Mark rose into the air once again and addressed the audience, continuing to maintain the air of a supreme expert. Now that the pest has been dealt with, let's get to the matter. You all have been summoned here. You may all sit down. Until Mark didn't say those words, none in the audience section sat down ever since he arrived and watched him in silence. Chapter 583.5, Prelude to the War Part 5. Roughly 4 weeks ago, when I was away, the city faced an invasion from otherworlders of Saint Realm. Of course, it wasn't a full-scale invasion, and neither did they target any innocents. They damaged a lot of my robots and took away my pet and the kingdom's guardian as a hostage to get back at me. But the incident made it clear to me that, in my absence, I can't even depend on the guardian of this mortal plane of existence. Perhaps the guardian god wants to see whether the demigods here could handle the suppressed immortals and saints. Or maybe he was too busy with other important matters. His reasons don't matter. What's important here is the fact that the world is too vulnerable, and I don't wish to see my people suffer for my actions. But I wonder, who are my people? Is it just my immediate family, or does it extend to the innocent citizens who put their hope on me? This thought gave me the revelation of what I should do, in order to give absolute protection to my people from any foreign threats. Raising 3 fingers, Mark continued to speak, 3 things that needed to resolve it. First, strength. Ether is something that people are born with. I cannot change the fate of those who aren't born with talent. But I can surely provide you with the firearms necessary enough to protect yourself. Before we consider the crisis from otherworlders, we should solve the internal security. By possessing firearms, even the weak could have the means to protect themselves. However, buying firearms is expensive. It is even more expensive for those who aren't born with ether, as they have to constantly depend on ammunition to use those firearms. The poor cannot afford it. But no worries, I shall help my people with that. Mark's words did confuse the listeners, as they didn't understand what he was trying to do, especially the kings of the Alliance. The first impression they had is, almost collectively, was he trying to promote his business or something? For a second, it seems probable, but in the next second, they felt something amiss. It was then Mark continued, second, the culture. The 3,000 years of culture and tradition of this world took away a woman's potential from them. Women make up half of the population of this world, but only 1 out of every 100,000 women takes up a weapon to become an adventurer, compared to men with an average of 1 out of every 1,000. Why is that so? Mark's voice rose as he asked, are they weak? Certainly not. She can bear the child for 9 months, look after her kids, do the house chores, help her husband by working in the agriculture fields for 12 hours, and take care of her elderly in-laws and even parents while still managing her household. Why can't she hold the weapon? Why should a woman feel embarrassed to hold a sword? Why should she think that she is a caretaker? Why should even a lady from the noble family think that she is nothing but a pawn to increase her family's reputation by marrying into another noble family? Why should she think that the female adventurers are nothing but a scourge to womanhood? Why? His 9 points of charm made the souls of women audience tremble at once. Many of them had tears filling their eyes, feeling that someone was resonating their voice to the public. And it isn't some lady who was unfortunate or some weakling who was voicing out his frustration. It is the voice of the strongest man. The voice of the strong always impacts the people. After his grandeur display against Shen Li, his voice carried even more weight. The extreme patriarchal system suppressed their abilities for thousands of years, and that halted the development of this world. Forget about women for a second. This culture we cultivated for thousands of years even takes away the voice of the poor and weak. A royal can just bully a commoner, and the commoner couldn't even gather the courage to voice it out. Look at my own servant. Their master is the Chancellor of Celestial United Dominion, and yet they didn't have the courage to complain about someone like Shen Li. Why? It's because Shen Li is royalty, my future in-law. Even with our tight bond, this weak mindset made them afraid that I wouldn't bring justice to them because I'm royalty and would probably side with my in-laws. So what can we do to resolve this situation? Well, even if I use force, it won't change the mindset of an existing culture. It needs upheaval from its roots. But that means I would probably have to destroy the whole world. I can't do that. So all I can do is bring my people to the land of utopia, where such a traditional and oppressive culture doesn't exist. I'm going to create a country where the freedom will be given to women to take up arms and respective positions in society, and even become family heads, where every house will have a robot that does house chores for free and no longer needs a servant that acts more like a slave, where no one dies of hunger, where everyone gets education regardless of their background, where there will be no noble houses to create a social hierarchy, where there will be a monarch as the head of the state, but the real power lies with the commoners who could elect their own leaders to rule them, where the laws will be equal to poor and the rich, where no one forces to worship a deity and influence you to pour your hard-earned money into donations, where there will be no street gangs to rob you, where the old doesn't have to depend on their sons for their livelihood, and where you could live without any worries for the tomorrow. If Mark's earlier words shook the hearts of women and the commoners, his following words have caused even the kings to tremble. But not every king or noble is pleased by the words. In fact, the majority of them only felt more afraid as Mark's words indicated of taking over the Western Moon, or possibly the Alliance too. Fortunately for them, Mark didn't end there and continued as he glanced at the VIP section where the nobles and kings had their facial expressions frozen. Rest assured, I never intended to take away the lands from my friends. This will bring us to the third point: creation of the country. Over the past few months, under Commander Fu Sheng's lead, Genesis elite troops were focused on clearing Sector 1 and Sector 2 regions in Blood Hill Forest. The rest of the sectors will also be cleared very soon, and I shall transform the entire forest into a new country. Whatever I promised earlier, all of this will be delivered to my people. But who are my people, one might wonder. My people are the ones who follow my ideals, put their trust in me, and help me to build the country and the land inhabited by beasts for thousands of years. 7 days from now, I will lock down the entire region of Blood Hill Forest for the outsiders and will start clearing out the field. The barrier will reject anyone that I don't approve of. And for those who are wondering whether I will be able to keep an eye on such a huge region, which is 100 times larger than this Western Moon, I present you the guardians of our country of paradise. Snap! With a snap of his finger, 4 figures rose from the spider ship and flew in different directions, maintaining distance from each other as they were instructed. Snap! Mark's snapping of his finger cleared the confusion and suspicion of many as the 4 humanoid-looking kid figures transformed into majestic creatures, whose appearances were known to every individual who went to the academy. The 4 holy beasts of the world. Song Tai's voice shivered as he voiced it out aloud. Mark nodded. The vermilion bird of the south, the azure dragon of the east, the white tiger of the west, and the black tortoise of the north. The very creatures our ancients used to name our continents. All of these are demigod realm beasts, but when they work together and conjure a protective barrier, not even a saint can break it. Including me, Commander Fu, my friend Sylvandria, and my mother, you have 8 demigods protecting the country. No force in the world will have the power to try to destroy the ideals of my country. In the first phase, I plan to take 10,000 people. It is on a first-come, first-served basis. The first 10,000 people who had their trust in me naturally will live in the most protected region compared to others. Once we build a stable society, we will open to 100,000 people in the second phase, but they will not receive the same benefits as the one from the first phase. Those who are interested in joining my country can visit our stores and register their names and their family. The poor and weak are given priority, but we aren't running a charity here. As I have said earlier, to become a citizen of my country, They had to let go of the oppressive culture and tradition deeply rooted in this society and follow my ideals, and they have to contribute to it by helping us in clearing the forest. Man or a woman, the gender doesn't matter. If you are healthy, you need to contribute. Only children and the elderly are exempted. That's all I have to say to you. I leave the rest to your decision. You have 7 days. The meaning is clear. If one wants to be one of his people, earn the right to protection and lead a worry-less life, one should follow his ideals and work hard to build the country. As for those who are not his people, he doesn't care. A lot of people didn't get this meaning, but many intelligent ones and the nobles and also the kings understood that very soon, Mark and his army would leave Lunaris and they would be deprived of his protection. What kind of consequences this move will have, they can only wonder. Chapter 584.6, Prelude to the War Part 6. After a while, at Royal Palace, Lunaris City, Mark and the other 6 rulers sat together for a meeting. Everyone had this tense expression as they were served wine by the servants, and they weren't sure whether they should bombard Mark with questions or just stay patiently silent. If it was before, they would not only question Mark's intentions, but also make allegations of misuse of authority against him. But his latest action on Shen, Li, made them realize that Mark just did it on purpose to state his intentions of resorting to violence if the situation arose, and he didn't seem like negotiating much. In the end, as the servants backed away after pouring wine to the kings, Mark took a sip and addressed them. So, I guess you are all still wondering what else there is to speak about, after announcing my plans already, right? No, we just want to hear a proper explanation from you. Collectively thought everyone at the same time as if all of them share the same brain cells. Mark leaned to the front and rested his elbows on the table, revealing the rest of his plans. After 1 week, I will be resigning my post as the Chancellor of Alliance and the head of the cabinet, leaving it in all of your hands. Whether you continue to maintain the alliance or not is up to you. On the other hand, I would focus more on the development of my own country, and then begin my conquest of unifying the entire continent under one banner, the Federation of Genesis. If you are interested in joining me, I promise you the autonomy to rule your own kingdom just as you have been doing now. Other than the fact that your lands will turn into kingdoms and act as the vassal states in name, there will be no changes at all. If not, I will give you the time to prepare yourselves while I primarily focus on unfriendly empires, and then bring my army to your doorstep, still letting you rule your own lands as you have been doing but on my terms. The choice is up to you. The guys who sat with him at the same long table were all kings and emperors. Even someone like Lu Zhen, despite being so young, was well versed in statecraft and could easily guess Mark's ambition after hearing his speech at the arena. Hence, Mark's announcement is within their expectation. If there was someone who wasn't prepared, it was perhaps Feng Chen, the puppet king of Western Yan. Unlike Lu Zhen, who deals with the affairs of the kingdom like a true king, Feng Chen lets his uncle, Prince Feng Wu, rule Western Yan as his steward, at least until he becomes an adult. As a result, apart from him who turned his head to look at his uncle, the rest of the royals stared at Mark in silence as if they didn't want to state their opinion. Mark wanted some kind of reply, but since he didn't get what he wanted, Mark targeted the guy who he wasn't close with, pointing his finger at him. Emperor Ming, if you have anything to say on the matter, you can speak. Ming Xianji took a deep breath and said in a deep tone, indicating his seriousness, "To be honest, the reason why the Qilin Empire joined this alliance is to acquire the backing as well as the protection from Chancellor Lu and Lord Fu's army. If you decide to leave the alliance and mind your own business, then there is no reason for us to stay in the group. Our Qilin Empire never submits to you, even if you become a deity, Lord Lu. Now, if you excuse me." He got up from his seat to leave in the middle of a meeting. "Brother Ming," Shen Niu stopped him, "please wait, let me handle this issue." Ming Xianji looked at Shen Niu. "Brother Shen, Lord Lu is clear in his objective. I'm afraid I don't share that sentiment." Shen Niu cupped his fists, gesturing for him to believe in him and turning toward his son-in-law. I mean, Chancellor Lu, we don't need to be merged into a single empire to unify the continent. We can just expand our alliance. There are only 3 forces remaining in the continent: Leon Empire, Kun Empire, and Dwarven Kingdom. The last 2 weren't a problem. Kun Empire's emperor is your friend, and as long as we take care of Leon Empire, the Dwarven Kingdom will voluntarily join the alliance on their own. After all, their king is a friend of us too. In response, Mark snapped at his father-in-law while cracking the cup of wine. King Shen, are you going to keep interfering in my plans? Earlier, I gave you a face and forgave your uncle. But this time, you shall not request on behalf of anyone, certainly not for a fool who couldn't see a bigger picture. Humph. Ming Xianji didn't retort to Mark's statement and left the room at a hastened pace. Once he was gone, Mark then placed his attention on the remaining, or more specifically, on his eldest half-sibling who was the most problematic guy in the group. If anyone else wishes to leave, they can. But I have to remind you all that what I want to establish isn't a monarchy, but a federal system where all vassal states will have significant autonomy. On the other hand, you 5 will retain full autonomy. All you have to contribute about 10% of annual taxes to the Federation and also ease up the migration for your people who want to move to my country. All this while, I was merely offering you my support. If you join my cause, I will be your shield. I'm 26 years old right now and I have reached the demigod realm. In the future, I will become immortal too. So, keep the future in mind and make your choice wisely. You have 7 days to send the letter of agreement to my residence. Mark disappeared as soon as he was finished, not intending to hear their reply right away. He teleported to his mansion, where he met his parents and sister, who were also ready to move in with him, intending to support him with his decision all the way to the end. And then he spent the rest of the week at his home, just waiting for the others to make their choices too. One day later, he gets an invite for another Council of Kings meeting. All the 5 states, even including someone like Shang Zexi, agreed to be part of the Federation but under certain conditions. 1. All of them will retain full autonomy, whether it is regarding their economic policies, internal security, or even judicial laws. The Federation will not claim any authority to interfere in the internal matters of the vassal states or attempt to break it into parts. 2. This period will last for at least 99 years. During this time, none of the vassal states would possess any right to break away. But once this time passed, they should be given the right to break away from the Federation to become an independent state once again. 3. The Genesis Cabinet will continue to exist, but in the form of ministry. In order for the 5 original vassal states shall have more power compared to the other members in the future, the ones that will join in the future can only have 1 representative while they continue to have 2 representatives. As for their tax contribution, it will be reduced to 30%. 4. As agreed beforehand, they will be paying 10% as annual taxes to the Federation. But this tax is only applied to the income generated from businesses. Agriculture is excluded. Also, under no circumstances, the Federation will not impose any additional taxes on them. 5. Any attack on a state that exceeds the magnitude of a 7-circle realm expert, the Federation must unconditionally send the army and deal with it. 6. Except for the Emperor's title, the vassal states will retain all of their existing titles. 7. The Council of Kings will continue to exist, and as long as there is a unanimous vote from 5 of them, regardless of others' votes, the Council should possess additional power to add or tweak conditions to this merger agreement. The 7 conditions presented by the 5 states after a heavy discussion surprised Mark a little bit as he purposely tried to remind them that they were talking to a demigod. But in the end, he comprised a little bit to give them a reason to maintain their dignity and sign the patch, using the oath of his blood. Not to mention, he saw several loopholes in the agreement and in time, he will take advantage of it if the need of the hour rises anyway. A few days later, Imperial City, Leon Empire. The old emperor of Shi Dynasty had his elbow on the throne's armrest, and his fist was supporting his tilted head as he was intensely gazing at 6th Prince, Shi Chang, who was kneeling in the middle of the court and defending himself in a pleading tone. Father, it was not done on purpose. If anything, it is the fault of Merchant Jiu. I never wanted to visit Prince Chi's mansion in the first place. He requested me over and over for the event. It was a joyous occasion and we had drinks. One thing led to another and— "Shut up, Chang'er, Emperor," she almost growled in this time. "It isn't enough that you dared to charm King Chi's favorite concubine, but you even abducted her. We are on the brink of a rebellion because of your act. King Chi is asking for your head." "Father, it is not true." The handsome-looking middle-aged fellow raised his voice in a hurry. "She willingly followed me to become my concubine. I didn't abduct her." The whole court went silent, witnessing the shamelessness of the prince who was well known for his profligacy. It is not uncommon for princes from the imperial family to steal wives or daughters of minor nobles or commoners if they like them. In a giant empire like the Lian Empire, the power of an imperial prince cannot be challenged. However, laying hands on the wife of someone like King Chi, who had an army of 500,000 soldiers to deploy, is akin to inviting death. Not even an emperor of the land will dare to do it. The emperor clenched his fists to control his anger, maintaining the same posture as if to show the others that he was calm and collected. "Fine then. Let's do this. Go south and bring your nephew, Prince Shiyun, to the capital. I will take care of King Chi for you, or else I will hand you over to Dragon Tiger forces." "Nephew Shiyun," the sixth prince gasped in surprise. Chapter 585, Moving to Genesis City. As the spies from various empires confirmed the news that Mark was going to occupy the Blood Hill Forest, the emperor of the Shi dynasty sent King Chi's troops to Blood Hill Forest to stop Mark's robotic army and Fu Shen's 100 elites. As for the matter with Prince Shichang, the emperor promised King Chi that the prince was currently on a diplomatic mission, and once he returned to the palace, he would hand him over. Of course, as a gesture of good faith, after sending away his son, Emperor Shi returned the woman Shichang eloped with to her husband's side with respect. To protect herself, she claimed that Shichang abducted her rather than accepting that she followed him willingly. She also had to lie that she hadn't been defiled by the prince, and the latter merely wanted to marry her, out of her fear of the societal perception and the importance placed on family honor. The foolish king believed her words, but the upcoming days would be tough for her in his absence, as her fellow concubines and the queen consort who are envious of her close relationship with their husband will surely not let go of this opportunity to bully her. Who knows, she might be driven to death and they make it like suicide. Hence, she planned on making her escape when the time came. Shichang reached Western Yan and stayed as a guest at the Church of Nuwa, trying to look for an opportunity to convince his nephew, whom he was close with, to return to the palace to meet the emperor. Meanwhile, the entire Blood Hill Forest was declared a forbidden zone by the Alliance. The kings and emperors passed their orders to adventurers from their land not to venture into the forest anymore. Shang Wei took this opportunity to announce mass recruitment for his military. Blood Hill Forest has been the source of livelihood for the majority of adventurers within the Vermilion Bird continent for the past 1,700 years, especially those from the Northern Phoenix Empire and Lian Empire to some extent. Once it has been sealed, many low-level adventurers will become penniless. Hence, he thought it was the best time to increase his military strength by inducting them. Protests emerged everywhere and many adventurers weren't willing to follow the orders of their rulers. They decided on risking their lives to enter the forest and continue their beast hunting. Their bet is on the fact that the Blood Hill Forest is too big for anyone to keep an eye on. Little did they know that there was a satellite revolving around the planet while constantly keeping an eye on the forest for several months now. While the respective armies of the vassal states tried their best to suppress the protests, Mark's robotic army was divided into 5 divisions. One division followed each beast and spread into 4 different directions to unleash carnage everywhere. The last division, headed by Arc Secundus Robot of rank 9, the deputy to Arc Prime, focused more on capturing the adventurers. As Arc was connected with the satellite, everyone's positions were clear to Arc Secundus, and it made their job a lot easier. But then again, the forest is indeed too fast. It is spread over 16 million SQ, km in area. It goes without saying that it will take time to capture everyone and clear out the forest. Of course, this doesn't mean Mark planned on eliminating every native species of the forest. It is foolish to kill the goose that lays the golden eggs. The best way is to capture them, breed them, and use them for his own benefit. Every time the guardian beast attacks a settlement, it leaves some survivors, and the robots take them as prisoners, throwing them into prison barriers conjured by the demigod beasts. For every 10-15 kilometers, one such prison barrier was created, where different surviving species were caught and thrown into the place. The spirit beasts with edible meat will be used to supply meat. The spirit beasts that had strong bones will be used to make either weapons or medicine. The humanoid-type spirit beasts with significant intelligence like goblins, orcs, kobolds, and even werewolves will be either branded with slave magic and then work in the mines and farms, or keep their freedom to become scouts to keep an eye on intruders in the forest. It depends on their choice, which he plans to give them later on. As for the spirit beasts that are not of any use to him, they will be slaughtered mercilessly. Since this is a world where spirit beasts are the enemies of humans and there is no PETA here anyway, he doesn't plan on showing any mercy to them. 6 weeks passed away in the blink of an eye. The barriers between each sector were no longer there. Almost 2/5 of the forest, primarily located in the south, was occupied by Mark. He didn't touch the northern section apart from occupying Sector 1 and Sector 2 completely, leaving the remaining region filled with chaos as high-tier beasts from Sector 3 and Sector 4 went on a rampage because of the freedom. There's also the fact that they absolutely don't want to stay near Sector 2. But then again, it is understandable. The demigod beasts are unleashing destruction everywhere in a random manner, and Eol's army took control of Sector 2 as robots were clearing out the trees to create more land for construction. Hence, some went mad and some were afraid. As a result, more and more beasts were seen running to the lower sectors of the northern region, which was guarded by the Lian Empire's King Qi and his forces. After 3 months, exactly 10,007 citizens left their homes and departed from the city of Lunaris, alongside Mark and his family. A straight, long dirt road was made from the edge of the forest from Western Moon's border directly to Sector 1, which now looks like an urban town with thousands of 2-bedroom wooden houses built in a uniform manner, and a giant palace comparable to that of Dragon Empires in the center, where Sector 0 Aka the Dragon lair used to be located. Of course, it is impossible to construct such a huge residence in a matter of 6 weeks. It was merely the transformation of the divine throne. He made this treasure his home so that those who live inside his family will be safe from any kind of attack in his absence. Since he hadn't completely taken over the land, Mark felt such precautionary steps were necessary. After all, the Lian Empire had already sent an envoy with a threatening letter threatening not to break the 1784-year-old pact of not touching the forest. He couldn't care less about Emperor Xi's rants, but had to be careful just in case. Several hours after everyone settled in their new homes, Mark summoned everyone to the palace grounds, where tents were spread all over the place. It was a little late in the evening, and the moon was absent in the sky. Yet, the surroundings of the entire sector were as bright as a day, due to the presence of fire lamps neatly arranged everywhere. Everyone made it to the palace grounds and gathered at one spot, standing together in silence as Mark, alongside Song Yue and their child, was seen on a wooden platform erected not far away from the tents. As they greeted him with a kneeling bow, Mark gestured for them to arise and then spoke. "Today, we all began a new journey in building this country together. On this joyous occasion, I would like to announce a couple of things. First of all, I would like to give you all a title as the first citizens of Genesis Federation. What kind of benefits you have over the others who will settle here later will be announced later on." Murmur. "First citizens. I wonder what kind of benefits we will receive. His Majesty gave us a new house as he promised. That's enough for us to keep hope. SHH, His Majesty is speaking." Mark continued. "Anyway, secondly, very soon, all of you will be getting your queen consort. In the future, Princess Shen Ling will succeed me and become Empress Regnant one day. So, I ask you to show your utmost loyalty to her. Murmur. What is His Majesty saying? Princess Shen Ling will rule this land. Why? So, His Majesty is actually serious when he spoke of promoting women empowerment. But even then there is Empress Song here. How could Princess Shen become the Empress Regnant? Yeah, what about the Crown Prince then? This time, murmurs were a bit heavy, and even Mark could sense there was a clear dissent within this large crowd. Song Yue couldn't help but comment in a hushed tone, "See, I told you, no one would like this idea." Mark forced out a smile and whispered back, "We'll see about that." He then shifted his focus back to the crowd and spoke loudly. "For those who are wondering why I would appoint Princess Shen Ling as my successor when there is my son right here. Well, not everyone is a leader material. A dragon might be the strongest creature known to mankind, but we don't fear it. Instead, we fear to wage war against a lion because it knows how to lead the pack. Princess Shen Ling is a capable leader, which this land needs to prosper. But you don't have to believe my words outrightly. When we achieve the third phase where our nation is ready to take it in 1,000,000 inhabitants, I'll go on a short vacation with Empress Song and Prince Lu Zhen for a short period, leaving this place under her care. You could then experience her ruling firsthand. When I return, I will ask you questions about her rule and ask for an honest answer. Your decision will decide on whether she continues as the Empress Regnant or will go back to being a queen consort." Chapter 586.1 Ascension Ceremony at Church of Nuwa, Part 1. 8 more weeks later. Church of Nuwa, Western Yan. The Church of Nuwa had guests from all over the world, mostly the bishops and other devotees who had a prominent place in the society. They were all here for the coronation ceremony of the new Supreme Pontiff. The other 3 cardinals were busy spending their time with important guests, especially the nobles and wealthy individuals who fund the church. Xian, the favorite candidate for the ascension, was however seen walking in the gardens, with his uncle from Lian Empire who had been staying in this place for the past 3 months. The main topic of their discussion was however Mark and the future of Lian Empire. Some time ago, the previous Supreme Pontiff of the Church of Nuwa had sent a letter of invitation to Mark to attend the coronation ceremony in the hopes of building a relationship with Genesis City. He wanted to expand the Church of Nuwa into Genesis City before the ever-dominating Church of Light managed to get in. More importantly, Mark also accepted the invitation. The problem, however, is the fact that Mark is currently at loggerheads with Emperor Shi. While the Lian Empire was putting up a barricade to protect half of the forest, Mark's robots and Eal's army focused on clearing out the remaining part. Prince Shichang was naturally against the idea of allying with Mark, but Xian doesn't have any personal opinion on the matter. If anything, this half-elf was slightly in favor of his church's decision. However, his views align more with having a strictly business relationship with Western Yan, unlike the political one that the current Supreme Pontiff is expecting. Look, nephew, you don't need to follow what your predecessor decided, who, by the way, is insane to even think about influencing an arrogant heretic like Lu Zhen. You are going to be the new leader of the church. Once you ascend to the position and receive the blessings of Goddess Nuwa, you can take whatever decision you think it is better, and you are going to be immortal anyways. What's there to be worried about? Xian responded with neither a refute nor an acceptance. Instead, he let out a chuckle. "Uncle, you seem like you are afraid to meet Lu Zhen here." Wah, Prince Shichang was taken aback by his nephew's comment and he stammered as he defended himself. Who is afraid of him? If not for his demigod servants, he would have long been dead by now. I heard that those beasts were guarding the forest. Since he knows that he is vulnerable without their protection, he didn't dare to advance further. Xian slightly blankly stared at him and commented, "He is also the same as them, just so you know." "What do you mean?" "He is a demigod, didn't your father tell you?" Prince Shichang couldn't speak for a while. His legs started trembling a bit. He quickly grabbed his arms. "Nephew, why did you even invite someone like him to the event? What if he comes and decides to do something bad? No one could stop him. I think I should return." Xian couldn't help but chuckle at his uncle's cowardice. Actually, this is a good chance to impress your father. See, you understand that I don't return to Lian Empire anyway, whether I get selected or not. You might as well take this opportunity to strike a deal with Lu Zhen to stop his conquest and give relief to your father. Your position will be solidified. Yeah, as if I could do that task, Shichang scoffed at his nephew's suggestion. If I was that capable, I would have long sat on the throne. But you were pretty much good by charming ladies and stealing them away from their husbands, Xian remarked almost instantly, causing the prince to become embarrassed. I don't know whether I should take it as a compliment or an insult. Cough. Anyway, what you suggested earlier is something to be noted of. How about you help out your uncle in negotiating with Lu Zhen? Since you are the host, perhaps, the chances of success will be slightly higher. Shichang changed the topic back to Mark, not intending to go on that line filled with arguments about ethics and all. A few hours later, the majestic spider ship landed in the premises of the church, where Mark arrived with the Grand Prince of Western Yan, Feng Wu, who is also called the True King, considering the fact that he was the one who was administrating the region in place of his nephew, the real king who was a 12-year-old kid. Leaving the region's protector, the Gold Dragon, to guard the king, Prince Feng Wu joined Mark in attending the ceremony. As the representative of the palace, Feng Wu received a great welcome from the young deacons of the church, and Mark received even greater honor as the chief guest, getting personally welcomed and escorted by the current Supreme Pontiff to the prayer hall. While Feng Wu sat down on the second with other guests of honor, Mark got to sit in the front row with the four cardinals. Xian was one of them who in fact sat right next to Mark. However, there was absolutely no conversation between them at all. Mark stayed silent and had his gaze fixed on the statue of the goddess with the upper body of a human-like and the lower body of a snake. The serpent-like tail coils beneath her. Soon, the Supreme Pontiff of the church come to the podium. Everyone got up as he spoke that they first prayed for the goddess. The guests of honor from across the world were all believers of the goddess. They naturally stood up. Even Feng Wu, the representative of the palace, had to stand up in respect for the Supreme Pontiff, the peak stage legendary realm expert. However, Mark was different. He neither held the Supreme Pontiff in respect nor did he worship the goddess. He alone sat down. The cardinals couldn't help but furrow their brows in displeasure because of his silence and continuous stare at the statue. The other guests of honor were shocked, and some of them were worried about possible conflict over this disrespect. But the Supreme Pontiff acted like he didn't see it and proceeded with his preaching. After a while, everyone sat down, and the Supreme Pontiff addressed everyone by raising his golden staff. Now, in a few moments, with the blessings of Goddess Nuwa, I will be naming my successor, who shall inherit this staff of immortality as well as the will of the church. Before that, the final two candidates shall have one last opportunity to appeal to the patrons who arrive today. It is not only important for the Supreme Pontiff to lead the preachers of the church, but also very important for him to work with the patrons to spread the word of our goddess to different regions. Hence, all the 26 patrons will directly vote for the candidate they would like to see him to lead the church. The announcement from the Supreme Pontiff did take everyone by surprise, as they were expecting this 341-year-old man to directly name his successor. Instead, he involved the guests without informing them in advance in order to select the new Supreme Pontiff. At the same time, the four cardinals couldn't help but expect their names to be in the final two. Since the leader of the church isn't going to select his favorite anyway and leave the decision to vote, their expectations are raised up. Mark furrowed his brows in response to the announcement from the old man, which he didn't want to be a part of anyway. He just folded his hands and looked at the Supreme Pontiff as he called out two finalists. The first choice was obvious. It was Xian. The second one was a much older guy named Yan Kao, who is over 125 years old and is at the intermediate stage of the legendary realm. As Xian and Yan Kao stood on either side of the Supreme Pontiff, the latter asked them to make their final speech for the votes. Yan Kao was quite passionate. He gave a 10-minute-long speech like a politician who wants to appease the masses, which Mark had only seen in his past life. Shien, on the other hand, simply mentioned that his accomplishments were known to the patrons, and if elected, he promised to make his predecessor's common wish of making the Church of Nuwa surpass the Church of Light. Mark didn't know about others, but he was certainly not moved by their words. He sat there in silence as one after another from the back rows stood up and named the person they pledged their support to. As if fate is putting Mark in an important position to take some decision, by the time it reached Mark, Shien was winning by 13-12, and so everyone had their eyes fixed on the chief guest who could make this a tie or make Shien a winner. As the Supreme Pontiff asked him and the entire hall was filled with silence, Mark spared a glance at each of them and spoke. Personally, I wasn't a patron of your church and certainly won't worship Mother Goddess Nuwa, so I'm not sure why you even want me to vote in the first place. The cardinals and the bishops and others felt like their heart skipped a beat upon hearing those provoking words. Some of them gave an unpleasant glare at him, and he could feel it. Nevertheless, Mark couldn't care less about their feelings and continued, "But since I'm the chief guest for this event and you asked for my opinion, I would say this guy is more suitable to lead the church than that fake on the podium." He pointed his finger at his back row, specifically at Shi Chang, and then added, "Right, Shien. Or should I say Shien, who is a pure elf." Huh. What did he just say? Chapter 587.2 Ascension Ceremony at the Church of Nuwa, Part 2. For a couple of seconds, everyone blankly stared at Mark as if they couldn't believe their eyes. Shi Chang at the back frowned at his statement and suddenly transformed into the half-elf who was supposedly standing on the stage. "How did you know?" Mark let out a smirk of victory without turning his head. "That is quite obvious. You both have almost identical souls, but your soul seems stronger. I bet this avatar of yours is created by soul-splitting technique, although you somehow managed to separate your race too." Mark's eyes were on Shien, who was near the altar, and his eyes were reading the information written on the holographic screen floating before him. Shien. Rank low 8 circle. Age 3 weeks old. Species human. Attribute fire. Spirit path summoner. Affiliation Church of Nuwa, Western Yan. As Shien went silent, the Supreme Pontiff of the church hollered in displeasure, "Can someone tell me what's really going on here? Shien." He looked at the guy standing beside him. With everyone's attention on him, Shien got up and spoke. "I apologize, Your Grace. I merely wanted to make sure that my race shouldn't become a problem for the church, as my fellow cardinals keep pointing it out." Shien on the podium then opened his mouth, continuing his explanation, gaining the attention of the others. "So, we split up into two beings. Me, a complete human, and my other self is a complete elf. I will lead the church as an authoritative figure while my other self will protect the church from the shadows. That's why we have decided to gain trust from our believers." Clap, clap, clap. Mark started clapping then, earning a frown from both versions of Shien, with his comment, "Your intentions are good, but it doesn't change the fact that you still tried to cheat your people in your church's most sacred ceremony." It was then the old man opened his mouth. "No, Cardinal Shien didn't cheat anyone here. In fact, it was admirable for him to think of the church's reputation first and the feelings of the believers." A supporter of Shien and a noble of the Kilin Empire, when Kao then said, "I agree with His Grace. I'm sure Lord Lu would also understand, considering the fact that he himself is a ruler of a country now. A leader must always make certain decisions for the welfare of his people. The fact that he is willing to sacrifice himself to lead the church itself shows how mature Cardinal Shien is." It seems like Lord Lu doesn't like Cardinal Shien for some reason. Of course, it goes without saying. Lord Lu is against Lian Empire now and Cardinal Shien is the grandson of Emperor Shi. But then again, like he said, he isn't a patron of the church anyway. His opinion doesn't matter. Yeah, why is he meddling in our affairs in the first place? I wonder why His Grace invited him to the ceremony. SHH, he will listen. If you offend him, it is over for you. As whispers and murmurs flowed around, which didn't escape Mark's ears, The latter questioned the two cardinals in a serious tone, although his gaze fixed more on the pale boy. In that case, I have to ask the candidates where their political allegiance will lie after they become the supreme pontiff. I heard that the church interfered a lot during the past decade when the Western Yan was governed by Jai clan. So this is why he accepted the invitation. Everyone, including Prince Feng Wu and even the supreme pontiff, wondered. Yan Kao, the cardinal of Dragon Empire's branch, spoke first. I believe it should depend on the number of believers and the kind of support we get from the country. The Western Yan is the only region in the world where devotees of goddess Nuwa crossed 50% of the population. More than 1 million people worship our goddess. Hence, no matter what, we have to look after their well-being. We should help when we are in the position to help. Unlike the Jai clan, the royal Feng clan treats the subjects as their own and has the most powerful backing in the world. They don't need our interference, Lord Lu. Mark was satisfied with his answer and he nodded with a subtle smile. He moved his gaze to the pale boy. What about you, Xian? Xian, the human avatar, looked back at Mark, meeting his eyes with his, and then answered in a voice filled with conviction. In my governance, the church will not meddle in any affairs. We help those who come to the church and ask for it. We help the unfortunate who lost everything, giving them hope to live. We provide guidance to the lost souls so that they can find their way back into the path of righteousness. But that's where our duty ends. Mark didn't buy it and further asked, what if I were to destroy the Lian Empire? You still maintain this resolve of yours? Xian was momentarily taken aback by his question. The one sitting behind in the second row wanted to answer, but the avatar on the stage beat him to it by stating, absolutely. Well, I don't think your shadow agrees with you, commented Mark in response, almost instantly. Xian Elf was taken aback as gazes fell upon him at once. He stayed silent, not intending to lie. After a brief silence, Mark continued, look, I don't care if you want to take sides or stay neutral. But if war arises between Genesis Federation and the Lian Empire, and I hear anyone related to your church helping out the enemy, even if it is your patrons or believers, either the church should abandon them or face the consequences. Consider it a friendly advice or a threat. This is all I want to convey in person to the one who will take charge of the church. With that said, hoping that the next Supreme Pontiff will maintain that resolve of neutrality, I vote for Xian. Mark's words were sharp and overbearing, but none dared to say anything against his face, and simply accepted his judgment. In order to repair the spoiled atmosphere, the Supreme Pontiff went on handing over the golden staff in his hand to Xian. I announce Cardinal Xian as my successor and the new torchbearer to all the believers of Nuwa in this world. The golden staff of immortality glowed as Xian was enveloped in light for a couple of seconds before a white cape appeared over his robes, and a long hat with the symbol of a serpent on his head. It was followed by the appearance of a serpentine woman made of light particles who gave a bow to the boy, speaking to only him. I greet the new apostle of Mother Goddess. Milady sent her blessings in your holy mission, just like your predecessors. Unless you die, you are forbidden to give up this holy mission or pass your position to someone else. The staff of immortality is bonded to your sound and will forever protect you from any harm. Very soon, when the water star, fire star, wood star, earth star, and metal star align themselves in a straight line, the heavenly Kunlun mountain will be descending to the mortal realm, right into this world at a place that shares a similar name. However, it cannot be accessed until one finds the key and unlocks its entrance for the first time. During the time of descent, the heavenly key will also descend to this world. However, it could fall anywhere from regions ruled by spirit beasts to even the depths of seas, and whoever claims this key will have the greatest chance to become the master of the heavenly Kunlun mountain. Your holy mission is to find this key and become the master. The heavenly key brings a lot of changes in its surroundings. That will be your clue. I have to remind you that other gods and goddesses will inform their apostles of the same. Hence, you have to be ready for it. Now, accept a portion of my power to raise your strength instantly, which will help you in facing for what's about to come. The entire message was strictly heard by Xian alone, and to an extent, The elven counterpart of Xian also became aware of it due to their telepathic and soul connection. For the others, all they heard was a strange being talking in an extremely unfamiliar language. Little did Xian, or the messenger, know that Mark had his artificial intelligence arc automatically recorded the entire message and simultaneously translated it to him. Mark managed to keep his poker face, acting as if he didn't care what was happening. Inwardly, he decided his next course of action. Once the message is over, the heavenly messenger disappeared. However, Xian started floating in midair, enveloped by the divine energy of Nuwa. His ether particles were steadily rising, leaving the spectators in awe. Look, his grace is going through a breakthrough. I wonder if he will become a demigod. I don't think so. Since he is not as whole, the most he could become is a supreme being, the peak stage of the nine-circle realm. Yeah, you are right. However, I wonder what powers he would be receiving from the Mother Goddess. I heard His Holiness, past Supreme Pontiff, has received the gift of Zalar venom, the most poisonous venom known for the man. Having nothing else to do at the moment, Mark started focusing on the murmurings of the audience, entertaining himself to pass the time. It was at this moment one of the deacons, the attendees of the former Supreme Pontiff who are standing not far away from Xian, suddenly charged forward at the target. Why? Before anyone could even make a move, the supposed deacon reached a vulnerable Xian in an instant and attempted to stab in the chest. Just as the black, corruptive energy dagger about to stab in the heart, the deacon was frozen on the spot. In the meantime, Mark was seen having his hand stretched forward. As he tightened his fist and motioned it above, the hooded deacon raised high above the floor. Those with high cultivation bases could see that the deacon was suppressed by some kind of attribute energy on all sides, effectively controlling the target's movements. At the same time, they also observed that there was absolutely no sort of resistance from the captured target anymore. Using his spatial control, Mark brought the target closer to him, feeling a bit familiar of the exposed partial face. The hood fell down eventually, revealing the face of one of the most beautiful women a man in this world ever laid his eyes on. Mark got up with a shocked expression on his face. Elena. Arg, Xian, on the podium, also screamed at the same time with some kind of needle struck his neck before he flopped to the ground. Thud. Chapter 588.3 Ascension Ceremony at Church of Nuwa, Part 3. Your Grace, Xian. Amidst of a series of gasps from all around, cardinals rushed forward alongside the elven counterpart of Xian too. Even Cardinal Yan Ko2 stood nearby Xian to protect him from further ambushes. Now that the decision is over and Xian received the mandate from their goddess, all cardinals and bishops and everyone else who belonged to the church must stay loyal to the new Supreme Pontiff. The former Supreme Pontiff kneeled to a collapsed Xian and checked his system as purple patches slowly started appearing on his skin. Letting out a gasp of surprise, he spoke. The needle released the spell of powerful witchcraft inside him. If we don't act fast, he will die. No, that's impossible, Xian Elf argued with the old man, my human counterpart. My brother received the mandate of Goddess Nuwa. He should have already become an immortal by now. The former Supreme Pontiff shook his head. Without completely absorbing the blessings of the goddess into one's soul, the staff's immortality doesn't work. Xian's expression grave upon hearing those words. Wah, what should we do now? He stammered a little bit. The Supreme Pontiff let out a deep sigh and placed his hand on Xian's chest. There's only one way to save him, the curse transferal. What do you mean? The Supreme Pontiff didn't bother to give any explanation and pressed his hand on fallen Xian's chest further, releasing an enormous amount of his divine energy into Xian's body. After I was gone, all of you must were. Swoosh. The Supreme Pontiff, too, didn't get to finish his words and was interrupted by the sudden appearance of a pitch-black barrier in the church, almost imprisoning everyone. Mark's words then echoed in everyone's ears. My domain's rule. I reject all kinds of witchcraft spells. It's the first technique of his domain, the absolute law. As soon as the absolute law comes into effect, purple-colored energy is released from Xian's body, freeing him of the patches on the skin too, alongside the purple energy seal from Elena's floating body. The strange purple energy flew to the top of the ceiling and got out of the barrier on its own before floating over there. Amazing! Xian is saved, the Supreme Pontiff screamed in surprise, earning Mark gazes from all sides filled with admiration. Mark simply shrugged his shoulders. Consider this a present on the ascension. He then shifted his focus on the purple-colored energy floating around the barrier, trying to invade it but to no avail. Singularity. A tiny dot appeared right above the floating energy, releasing an enormous amount of suction force and swallowing up everything before it destroyed itself, with a simple thought from Mark. This is no longer the Mark from a few months ago who depended on the system too much. In a matter of a few weeks, Mark explored his powers quite a lot, and under the guidance of Sylvandria, he mastered many of them to the extent of invoking them with a thought. Of course, his mastery is still inferior to other regular demigods, but still, the current mastery is enough for him to resolve small situations like these. Maintaining his domain, Mark passed the orders to Ark. We should fast forward our world barrier integration plans. Ark, the 4 guardian beasts, should be ready to launch it by the time those 2 objects descend to the planet. Understood, boss, replied the AI. Mark could swear that if this AI is standing before him as an android, it will be saluting right now. The AI meanwhile further added, but I have a question. What should we do about the ones who come here beforehand and wait for it? Naturally, we either eliminate them or capture them, replied Mark. However, we need to increase the production of AI cores. Let's halt weapon production for now and focus on developing AI cores instead. As you say, boss. A few hours later, Mark was in a room alone with both versions of Xian. When they expressed their thanks for the help, Mark didn't speak anything. But when he was about to leave, he spontaneously asked for a meeting as if he suddenly thought of it, and they had to accept it right away. Of course, some of them were still worried about letting Mark be alone with their Supreme Pontiff without any guards in their presence, not to mention the fact that some still suspected Mark is behind the incident. First, he berated their Supreme Pontiff and the Church, then he saved him timely, and then he asked for a meeting. Naturally, they couldn't trust him. But then again, they couldn't do anything either. That's a demigod, an existence who could just kill the entire country and still escape without facing any consequences. Coming to the meeting, as Supreme Pontiff Xian, who reached the peak stage of the Supreme Realm because of Nuwa's blessing, asked him to speak of his mind, Mark opened his mouth. He didn't beat around the bush and directly speak of the matter he wanted to speak. Unsurprisingly, it was about the Leon Empire. He first proclaimed that Leon Empire would be broken into pieces after he was done with his conquest, and he offered one of those territories, which is larger than even Western Moon, to Xian's elven counterpart with full autonomy, provided that he governs the land under his authority. He also offered guidance from Sylvandria, a pure elf, in order to explore his powers too. Xian can then shift the headquarters of the church to that region, which will be protected by Mark and his army. As an additional bonus, Mark was willing to give his support to the Church of Nuwa, making it the prime religion in the Vermilion Bird continent. Xian did neither say yes nor no. He merely told him that he would think about the proposal. Mark knew the reason behind their hesitation, and since he knew about the descent of the heavenly Kunlun Mountain in the Kunlun/Kunyu mountain range, Mark didn't pressure them further and calmly left the room. As he walked out of the room, he saw the real Xichang, Leon Empire's crown prince, standing there in a bit of worry. Their eyes met and the prince bowed slightly. Hello. Mark gave a subtle nod after inspecting his details. See you around, Prince Xichang. As he walked away, Xichang rushed in to see his nephews. Xian, you all right? He couldn't help but ask. Both of them nodded at the same time. As the elf left the room citing an excuse of having an important thing to do, the new Supreme Pontiff of the Church conversed with his uncle for a while, revealing every bit of conversation he had with Mark, taking Xichang by surprise. While Mark and Feng Wu boarded the spider ship with an unconscious Elena, Xian, elf, who covered himself in black robes, left the church and made his way into the town. Meanwhile, the old witch was sitting in a rundown basement with little sunlight. Mystical drawings and strange items from dolls to even skulls were seen all over the place, and her expression at the moment doesn't look good. Damn it, my perfect plan went down to waste. It's all because of that old geezer. Why should he invite someone like Lu Zhen to the ceremony? Not only my connection with the puppet was gone, but also failed to do his task. Now, Xian has become invincible. I lost the opportunity of a lifetime. As she was busy muttering the words, blaming her fate, a hooded man walked in and let down his hood, revealing his face to the witch. The witch was instantly scared by his appearance. Xian. Xian coldly looks at the witch. You failed to assassinate him. Not only you disappointed your lord, but you also disappointed me too. You were supposed to kill him, and that will enable me to freely roam the world to search for my father. To help you out, I even pulled strings behind everyone's back to let your puppet inside. In the end, you couldn't still do your job. And now I'm not only stuck to the church once again, but also have to face one of my uncle's assassins. Luckily for me, Lu Zhen pledged to take care of the Shi dynasty. But unfortunately for you, my brother lives and I lost my chance to get my freedom. Tell me, what should I do with you now? The witch trembled a bit, averting her gaze away. It's the fault of Lu Zhen. Had I known that he is actually a demigod who mastered the domain, I would have planned it differently. I'm not here to listen to your excuses. Xian elf folded his hands to the chest, giving her a stern gaze. Chapter 589, Return of Elena. The old witch with her disheveled hair went silent for a few seconds before laughing out loud like a maniac. Ha 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 ha, why didn't I think of it before? She then looked back at the young man whom she feared earlier. I have a way to kill him too. I need your cooperation in invoking the forbidden spell of witchcraft. Xian didn't say anything and just silently stared at the witch, who started muttering various words in a disoriented speech like a maniac. She went past him and collected various things from all over the room before finally taking out a needle that looked identical to the one that pierced earlier. Upon reaching the place of what seemed like a perfect blind spot, she threw the needle precisely aiming for Xian's neck. The needle was about to pierce him, but Xian tilted his head at the last moment and the needle evaded the target. SHT. The witch couldn't help but curse inwardly as her plan failed. She quickly made her way toward the exit. However, she couldn't even go a couple of steps and a hand pierced her back, grabbed her heart and forcefully brought it out. Thud. She fell to the floor at once and turned into a corpse. Xian looked at the body coldly and crushed the heart into a bloody pulp. Humph, do you take me for a fool or something? Just because I was willing to give you another chance, do you think you can try to kill me and present my body to your beloved client? No one in the world deserves a third chance. But don't worry, I will send your client to the spirit realm to keep you company. Meanwhile, after dropping Feng Wu at his palace, Mark refused his lunch invitation and hurriedly left for his private island. Once he reached the factory, he carried an unconscious Elena to the experiment rooms, where the mechanical Cerberus Elena was seen busy monitoring the weapon production. Hey Elena, big bro, gasp, that's my body. Elena charged toward him in excitement. Where did you find it? Is it in a good state? Looks that way. I know that you promised me, but still I never expected to find my body once again. Master, let's begin my core integration immediately. I can't get back to my previous state. Elena was jumping left and right like a doggy in her robotic three-headed hound's body. Whether it is her tone or her body language, she is clearly excited and quite impatient to return to her original state, showing how much she missed it. Mark, however, stopped her. Nope, we have to test it first to make sure everything is clean. Earlier it was controlled by witchcraft. Arc, connect to Arc Prime and call him here. He passed the instructions to his AI. Within half a minute, Arc Prime, the rank 9 super robot, came to his master and greeted him with a half-kneel bow. Leaving him with the objective of the analysis and core integration process, Mark left the experiment room to leave the island. flying to the island nearby where his Yang, the great anaconda king, was resting on a hill. Yang uncurled its tail from around the tip of the mountain and made its way to the beach, where its master was waiting for him. "Greetings, masterer." As it greeted its master with a hiss and lowered its head to almost the ground, Mark responded by slightly flying high and giving a pat on its head. "Yang, this time, I came here to take you with me to your new home. Let's go." "But masterer, this place." Yang seemed reluctant to leave because of its attachment to the island. Mark, who already anticipated it, went into action without wasting any time. He flew into the sky higher and higher until he could see the entire 1 km of the island with a little mountain in the center. Stretching his arms widely, he unleashed spatial energy into the surroundings, connecting with everything around him. Compression. Compression. The user can compress the matter into condensed size without hurting the objects or people inside for a period of 60 minutes. After the time limit, everything will become original right on the spot. Note: weight doesn't change. Cost: 30% ether energy. CD: 3 hours. As he moved his stretched arms toward each other, Yang sensed that the entire island with it was being compressed on all sides. However, it didn't feel any discomfort even though it was reduced to less than an inch in a matter of a minute. At once, the island vanished from the ocean. As the emptied region was replaced by the waters, Mark used his density manipulation on the 2-foot-sized cube, reducing its density to 0.01 times before carrying it away with him back to his factory. There, Arc Prime and Elena were busy rebuilding her body to give an upgrade with stronger materials from the recycled junk of various Rank 8 and Rank 9 robots. Mark left them to their own devices and teleported back to his home, the Genesis City. The citizens came out of their homes to look at the sky where a large floating island appeared out of nowhere, followed by the rush of the clouds as if they were in a hurry to hide the mountain. The majestic peak of a 700-meter-tall mountain, which was coiled around by an anaconda, was witnessed by the prime citizens of the country. They couldn't help but look at it in awe as 4 guardian beasts flew over the city skis not long after and landed on the floating island. The holy beasts took the position in each direction of the island and unleashed an invincible barrier over Genesis City, safeguarding it from any outside entrance that Mark didn't approve of. That means even if one secretly entered the country, they couldn't enter the city anymore and have to fend off themselves in the wild, where surviving beasts turned even more aggressive due to their periodic capture and extermination by the robots. 2 more days later, at Fujian Island later. Assembly initiated. Framework stabilized. Inserting primary core module. Wiring connected. Power source upgraded, integrating new cells. Sensors calibrated. Motor functions enhanced, installing servos. Memory bank expanded, synchronizing data. Voice module adjusted, testing output. Visual processors optimized, activating enhanced optics. AI core installed, running diagnostics. Final assembly complete. System booting, initiating startup sequence. Within a few moments, Elena slowly floated in the air and slowly landed on the ground. Arc Prime and Arc Secundus, both intellectual superbots, greeted her at the same time. "Welcome back, Android B143S. Her eyes gave off a pitch-black glow around her blue pupils as she opened her mouth. "Elena, that's my name, fellas. Call me Elena Spencer." She then flexed her fingers, observing them for a few seconds before releasing an orb of dark energy. "I feel different. Your powers have been combined with necromancy powers left behind in your system from your previous holders," replied Arc Prime, to which Elena shot the dark energy orb to the ground. The orb hit the floor and transformed into a lick. As it let out a ghostly scream, Elena curled up her lips and licked them. "I like this." Arc Prime and Arc Secundus looked at each other meaningfully. Chapter 590. Emergency Meeting at Leon Empire. Imperial Leon City, Leon Empire. In the palace, Emperor Shi called for an urgent assembly of the ministers in his throne room without any public audience. General Fan and Grand Marshal Yu were also present at the meeting. Whether it is the Grand Marshal of Lian Empire, Supreme Commander of Phoenix Empire, Sovereign Supreme of Dragon Empire, or the Supreme General of Western Moon, the titles might be different, but basically, all of them are just the same. They are the heads of the entire army and are often considered the second most powerful person in their country. General Fan briefed the situation in Blood Hill Forest, explaining, apart from King Qi and his 3 legions, there are more than 500 adventurers, and MT. Hudang disciples were also trapped in the barrier. For all we know, Lu Zhen has ordered the capture of intruders in his territory, and for those who resist, they will be killed. That barrier from the demigod beasts wouldn't let anyone go in or out without his permission. The situation has indeed become dire. We have to do something, commented the Minister of Finance. The Minister of War slammed the table with his fist of anger. This is clearly an act of war, Your Majesty. The Prime Minister of the Empire reluctantly voiced his opinion. Your Majesty, as far as we know about Lord Lu, he is someone who would prefer peace when he could see profits. It's best if we negotiate with him. Negotiation. That's something we have to do if we have no other choice, Prime Minister Wang, commented the Grand Marshal. Emperor Shi has added to the Grand Marshal's comment, if we negotiate, there is only one thing he will ask, the recognition of his country, which we will never will. We have been guarding the pact of not touching the forest for the past 1785 years. There is no way we will let it break now, just because some demigod is interested in having his own country. Everyone felt silent for a few seconds, now that they have heard their emperor's thoughts. The emperor's eldest grandson, Prince Shichang's son, Prince Shixuan, who often competes against his own father for the throne and was the most vocal in the assembly, spoke on the matter as the others were still wondering what to say. Your Majesty, we don't need to act on our own. We can move the guilds. Emperor Shi looked at his grandson for an explanation. The others also did the same, except for the Prime Minister, who already seemed like he understood what the prince wanted to say. He quickly warned the prince, Your Highness, you do understand what you are about to suggest, right? If taken wrong step, the entire world will burn in the flames of war. Yes, I understand it too. As the prince solemnly nodded, the emperor asked him for a clear explanation. The prince went on to explain, Lu Zhen could form a country on his own. It is not a problem for anyone. It's because Blood Hill Forest is not the land claimed by any empire. He can even cut down the forests and build his own cities. However, if he is wiping out all the beasts and harvesting their corpses for himself, covering up the entire forest with the barrier, and banning entry for the outsiders, he is going to affect the livelihood of thousands of adventurers. Based on this act, we can force the guilds to act against Lu Zhen in order to protect the interests of their fellow adventurers. An egoist like Lu Zhen will never bend to someone's will. Obviously, the guilds will lose. But if we carefully act, we can involve the other empires to give justice to their guilds. The guilds are one of the primary sources of income for every country. The restaurants survive on the meat of the corpses they buy on the market, and we cannot forget the usage of spirit beast bones in medicine. Of course, the usage of beast cores in raising one's cultivation, and some key parts like blood, eyes, and heart are used in making high-quality weapons. And before involving everyone, we have to bring our neighbors into our fight against Lu Zhen. According to our spies weeks ago, Lu Zhen announced that he intends to bring every single region in the Vermilion Bird continent under his rule. The south is more or less under his control, but before he makes his move, we have to ally with Qilin and Kun Empire. If we also bring the dwarves to our side, it will make our job even easier. What His Highness makes sense. Your Majesty, I agree with His Highness. Me too, me too, me too. I also agree with his opinion. I'm not sure about it. I mean, this will paint us as weak. No, Minister Li. If Lu Zhen attacks us directly, we have what it takes to protect our land, but it is another thing to venture into the wild and attack him. We clearly have no idea what else is lurking in that vast forest. Your Majesty, please make the decision. After much pondering, the old emperor commented, "I guess my wastrel of a son indeed did a good job of giving birth to a smart one. However, it isn't enough to bend his will for a very long time. We need a key hostage, a betrayer, and a strong adversary." "You mean?" "Find out where the supreme pontiff of the Church of Doom is hiding, and contact that mage. It is time to wake up our sleeping spies." Meanwhile at Fujian Island, as Elena sat there on the table obediently, Mark was inspecting the details. Elena Spencer. Species Android. Rank 8. Spirit Path Assassin May. Skills: Shadow Cloaking. Turn invisible for 120 seconds and escape the sense of 8 circle and lower. In this state, Elena can attack the enemies. CD. 10 min. Short Teleportation. She can teleport 500 meters away. CD. 30 sec. Shadow Daggers. She can summon 2 Protoss daggers and use them as weapons. They can interrupt the energy of enemies. CD. 0 sec. Twilight Shackles. She can manifest 3 energy chains with blades as the tip. Enemies who pierced by the chain will lose speed by 50% for 5 minutes. CD. 2 min chain. Undead Creation. She can create undead creatures that can unleash magic such as lick and wraiths. CD. Depends. Spectre Extraction. She can extract specters from the dead creatures out of their hatred. The specters extracted will retain 50% of the strength that the dead body has at their peak moment. She can only maintain 1 such specter at one time. CD. Depends. Death Knight. She can call forth the Death Knight from the Netherworld to battle the enemies on her behalf. The Death Knight will have +1 rank stats than her and will stay in the world of living for a period of 30 minutes. CD. 24 hours. Passive: Aegis of Night. Her stats increase by 1 rank after sunset and is immune to all the curses. She also turns a bit sadistic and violent. Interrogation. She can bewitch the minds of enemies with a 7 circle or lower to extract information. Friend of the Undead. Any undead creature will automatically act friendly towards her unless she lands a hit on them. Mark couldn't help but fall into deep thinking, wondering about the implications of such new abilities in Elena. Chapter 591. Elena arrives at Genesis City. After her core was extracted, her physical body was possessed 2 times. The first time, the Necromancy King performed a forbidden ritual on her and made him his undead general, and the second time, it was the old witch who used witchcraft and used her as her battle puppet. The after effects of those rituals probably brought some undead abilities in Elena, which were boosted further by repair of her body parts and insertion of her old core. Since Mark didn't exactly know what happened with her in the past, and neither did Elena remember anything as her memories exist in the core itself, he could only assume that it was for the best and put those unnecessary thoughts for the future away. Mark tested her abilities for a while before taking back her with him. The citizens of Genesis City have never seen Elena before. They couldn't help but wonder whether their lord brought another beauty home. Naturally, they were happy anyway. Their lord deserves 100 women in their eyes. Sylvandria was the first to meet them, quite coincidentally on the street though. She was helping out healing a sickly elderly woman in their home, and when coming out, she had her eyes locked on Mark and Elena, who were not far away. She went toward them, and Mark greeted her casually with a wave of his hand. Elena didn't do anything but silently stood behind him. Sylvandria looked at her in a bit of surprise, a puppet, like Alan. Mark introduced her. Meet Elena. You know that robotic 3-headed hound you met once? That's me. This is my old body, which my dear big bro found and brought back to me, replied Elena, affectionately grabbing Mark all of a sudden. Sylvandria was slightly taken aback by her words and her actions, which didn't seem anything like a puppet. She remembered Alan and knew that she would act human-like, but for some reason, she felt like there was a hint of jealousy and attachment in Elena's tone and expression. Or maybe she was just overthinking these days. In the end, Sylvandria concluded it like this and maintained a smile. Hello, Elena. I'm Sylvandria. Elena nodded firmly. I'm aware of it, Miss Sylvandria. I'm connected to Big Bro's mind. I know what happened between you two and also being aware that you are a good friend of my big bro. Ah, I forgot about that. You can see my memories, Mark quickly warned the android, Elena. You cannot ever tell Song Yue about us. Of course that goes without saying, big bro. Elena let out a smile as she nodded. After a brief pause, she however added, that time you aren't exactly yourself. Not to mention, you don't have any feelings for Miss Sylvandria anyway. So rest assured, Sister Yue will never hear of the things you were uncomfortable telling her through your own mouth. Let's go. I'm dying to meet her after so long. Ah, okay. Sil, are you coming with us to the palace? No, I have to visit another house to treat someone's illness. Okay, come home. Today we will have a grand banquet as I have something to announce. Big bro, let's go. As Elena dragged Mark away, Sylvandria stared at their back in a bit of sadness. She then put her hand on her stomach and mumbled, when the time comes, I really hope both of you won't cause chaos in the family. Mark and Elena returned to the palace, which is more like a large estate that includes his mansion-sized residential home and various other buildings. Within the palace grounds, there is a butchery house where the corpses of high-quality spirit beasts hunted by Fu Sheng's army will be brought back here for the meat and other body parts. Then there is a breeding farm where the captured spirit beasts are brought back here to breed them in either increasing their population or conduct experiments to create new spirit beasts. There are two types of beasts here. One type is used for purely meat purposes. The second type is used for tamming purposes. There is also an entertainment house, which is more or less a brothel but without any sexual services. The nobles, the royals, or the officials can visit here. They drink to their fill, are entertained by courtesans with their music or dance, magic shows or live paintings, and return to their homes. With over 1 million residents at the moment, Mark could find people in every kind of job. In Genesis City, the term noble courtesan strictly refers to the ladies who work at the Royal Entertainment House, displaying their talent and nothing else. These are all highly educated and skilled, and revered by the citizens. Anyone who lays a hand on them without their consent is bound to face strict punishment or even the death penalty, or so, if one quotes the royal palace's announcement. Unfortunately, the commoners who aren't working as officials in the royal palace cannot access this place. For them, there is a common brothel in the city that includes both entertainment and sexual services, just like every other brothel in other empires and kingdoms. However, what's different here from anywhere else is the strict law. The rank 4 robotic dogs and rank 5 robots are considered the foot soldiers who always patrol with at least one rank 6 robot 24 hours all over the city. They were quite merciless against those who committed the crimes. When the population was only 10,000, the city was relatively at peace. But when it increased to 1 million after the recent third phase, which was supposed to be at a later date but had to prepone it due to certain situations, it was hard for even Mark to keep track of crimes. The merciless robots put too many people in jails for even little crimes that could be ignored for the first time. To face this challenge, Mark had to recruit some skilled people to accompany the robots, giving them the authority to punish or show mercy to first-time wrongdoers. Anyway, the strict law and constant patrolling almost ensured zero crime rate in the city and made the women safe, especially the working ones. Since Mark doesn't look down on any kind of profession, within the past couple of weeks, the people also saw changes even in their own thoughts. But then again, social status is something that not even Mark could eradicate, not that he wanted to. Hence, he modified it in a way to suit his ruling before he could bring democracy to the land. Like for example, the royal courtesans working in the royal entertainment house naturally get more respect than the courtesans working at ordinary brothels. The officials of the royal palace will have higher respect than the ones who work to fend off themselves by setting up their own shops and such. The 10,000 prime citizens will have greater respect in the city than even a 100,000 gold net worth wealthy individual who moved in the third phase. Back to the palace, other than those 3 buildings for each ministry, judicial hall, etc., were all built on the premises of the palace, everything except for a temple. Elena knew everything from her master's memories, but seeing through her own eyes was a different experience for her. She couldn't help but become proud of her master, who managed to build a well-functioning city in such a short time. Together, as they returned to Mark's residence, which is guarded by several rank 8 and 3 rank 9 robots, they saw Song Yue was busy playing tag with her 5-month-old son, who already started running a bit. Little Lu Zhen was trying his best to catch her mother, but to no avail. His cheeks were puffed and he looked so frustrated that he might cry at any time. Clearly, Song Yue was enjoying that for some reason. Wah! Lu Zhen bent his head forward to charge into his mom. She was about to dodge at the last second once again, but then, upon sensing the presence of her husband, Song Yue looked to the right and saw both of them together. Elena, she was taken aback in surprise. Lu Zhen caught his mom finally, but he too shifted his attention toward the source where his mom was looking at. Ba ba! Lu Zhen excitedly charged at his dad, but then just a few steps later, he lost his footing and was about to fall down. Elena disappeared and reappeared by Lu Zhen's side and caught him quickly, earning a surprise from both mom and son. As Lu Zhen looked at her, Elena raised him to her eye level and smiled. "Hello there, young master. We meet again." "Huh?" Lu Zhen cutely tilted his head with his index finger in his mouth. Chapter 592, King Qi's Betrayal. A few days later, thousands of citizens gathered on the sidewalks, watching a large number of troops walking in Genesis City. Every soldier was stripped of their armor and weapons and had their cultivation bases sealed. King Qi, who alone had all of these intact, was leading the troop in the front with his head hung down just like his 1,700 soldiers. He was escorted by Elena alone, without a single robot or any soldier of Eyal's army. Wearing pure white armor that Eyal once wore when he was in the body of an android, Elena led the prisoners in steady steps to the palace gates, where Mark and his robotic army were waiting for them. Upon reaching him, Elena went down to one of his knees and bowed. "My lord, your task is accomplished. Due to the resistance, I killed 42 enemies and took the remaining enemies as prisoners after King Qi surrendered. However, on the way, some of them tried to escape. As a result, 62 more were killed and escorted the remaining 1706 to the capital city. But rest assured, not one enemy has escaped." Mark stepped forward and patted Elena's shoulder. "Well done, Commander Elena. You broke the will of the enemies all by yourself. Escort the prisoners to the detention center and lock them up in the cells. We will see if I have to release them or destroy their cultivation and throw them in Blackstone prison." "Understood, my lord." As Elena got up, Mark shifted his attention to the man standing beside her, King Qi. The man raised his head to look at Mark. His eyes seemed lifeless, as if he had lost the will to live and was prepared to get beheaded. Mark then said, "Follow me, we have things to talk about." After a while, at the administration building. In Mark's office, King Qi sat on the sofa. His eyes retained some hope to live but also extremely nervous, based on how his enemy was treating him so far. Nevertheless, he didn't have any plans to ambush a demigod like Mark. Serving him the cup of coffee and then serving one for himself, Mark dragged the chair and sat before him. "I might have borne a prince, and now I might be a king, but I have a businessman's heart, King Qi. So don't worry. You won't die if you have something valuable to trade for it." King Qi couldn't help but abruptly raise his head to look at Mark in surprise. "Trade my life with something. I will give you all the treasures I have in my storage ring and also our ancestral treasures lying in our treasury back at my palace." His eyes were now filled with hope. They were no longer lifeless. The nervousness also disappeared for a moment. However, Mark shook his head with a smile. "I'm afraid that won't suffice." Taking a sip of coffee, Mark continued, "You are our prisoner, King Qi. The reason you weren't stripped of your powers and the weapons is because you have some use to me, and for that to happen, you need to keep your reputation. Regardless, as the winner, I already own everything that was on you, including the things in your storage ring. As for your ancestral treasures in your palace treasury, they would also be mine soon anyway. once I defeat the Shi dynasty. So what is it that you want, then? King Qi once again grew nervous. Mark answered, first things first, I need to know about the list of lords that are too loyal to Emperor Shi and the ones that are too selfish. Secondly, I need you to formally declare independence from Lian Empire and merge with ours. Of course, I will give you partial autonomy for the first 10 years. After that, your state will attain full autonomy. As a bonus, I will also give you your surrounding territories once my conquest is over. This is the proposal from me. Accept it, and I'll let you return to your home. The imprisoned soldiers will return with respect once the declaration has been made. What if I deny? King Qi asked nervously, just trying to probe Mark's line. Mark calmly put down the cup and said, I'll kill you and your army right now. Since your state is on the border with the forest, I'll first invade your land and raze everything to dust. Even if you return and don't fulfill the promise in the following 48 hours, I'll still do the same. If I have to kill all of your 500,000 soldiers waiting at your place and trying to protect it, I will do that without any hesitation. I don't show mercy to my enemies who aren't useful to my objectives, and I never let go of the hand of my friends who stand behind me and support my decisions either. So, it is your choice, King Qi. Stand behind me or you will find yourself standing against me. Be my friend or be my enemy. No third option here to choose. It didn't take long for King Qi to decide at all. He agreed to the deal and left the city a day later. A rank 8 robot escorted him to the border and returned. Meanwhile, at the Imperial Palace, Emperor Shi was holding a meeting with the Dwarven Kingdom's Prime Minister and the Crown Prince, putting forth a formal alliance. At first, the dwarves felt tempted to form an alliance, but then the news of King Qi's return was received by them, and they held it off, asking for time to think about it, using an excuse that their king could not be easily convinced by Emperor Shi's proposal when no such threatening letter came from Genesis Federation. Not to mention the fact that the dwarves were never the adventuring type. They didn't have an issue with whether Blood Hill Forest was captured or stayed free. Emperor Shi summoned King Qi to the palace to understand what happened. As soon as he got the news, the emperor sent his eunuch to summon him. However, a day later, the eunuch returned alone with nothing but a letter. The eunuch presented the letter to the emperor in the assembly, as he was told. The letter was, shockingly, the letter of independence. The second largest region of the empire rebelled against the throne. The letter also further demanded the head of the prince who dared to abduct the queen of Golden Eagle Kingdom. Early in the morning, Mark went for a walk to inspect the farming land that had just been created after clearing the wild trees and plants over there. As he was enriching the land with his divine energy, Elena appeared out of nowhere, teleporting right next to him with a piece of good news from Lian Empire. Mark couldn't help but smile and mumble, "It looks like King Qi stayed true to his promise. Now, for the next thing, throwing the empire into chaos." Chapter 593, An Attack in the Night. Imperial Palace, Lian Empire. At around 2 in the morning, when every official is in deep sleep, while the patrolling of soldiers in the palace is as strong as ever, a figure shrouded in darkness appears in the sky without being detected by anyone. He then raised his hand, stretching it forward and conjuring a seal, "Arise, my soldiers." A giant portal glowing in scarlet appeared in the middle of the palace grounds, alerting every soldier around. As the nearby ones rushed toward the portal, hundreds of demons flew out of the portal, spreading in all directions. An attack, quickly informed the commander, Kaya. Screams of agony followed the scene. The demons just attacked whatever appeared in their sight and killed whoever they laid their eyes on, causing mayhem everywhere inside the palace. However, their operation was strictly focused on the premises of the Imperial Palace. The demons didn't chase after anyone who left the palace gates. A few generals and even the Grand Marshal, who were currently in the palace, were forced to exit the residence. At the same time, the princes and the emperor were kept protected in different underground bunkers linked to various secret tunnels. Emperor Shi was isolated from the princes and the rest of the members of the imperial family, and had a general and trusted guard to protect him. Originally, this shouldn't have been done so swiftly, But as the Grand Marshal sensed the presence of several supreme being demons, he took control of the palace and made the arrangements. The Grand Marshal, Shi Zhaoyang, unleashed the sword of Ifrit and swung it down. Streaks of flames traveled in different directions, killing all the demon soldiers in its path. The humans in the way weren't harmed in the least. Grand Marshal is here. Everyone fight, kill these bastards. A new enthusiasm brought in the soldiers. The ones initially running away stopped and turned around to face the demonic creatures. As the generals with 7 Circle Realm strength joined the battle, the low-ranking demons were killed one after another. The Grand Marshal took care of captain-rank demons. These demons each have a similar strength as the generals, but none could defend themselves against the onslaught of the Grand Marshal's sword. His divine-grade sword's flames burned them to death, one after another. In a span of mere 30 minutes, the demonic invasion seemed like it had ended, and the last one was also burned to death. There were a lot of losses. 3 generals and more than 600 soldiers were killed in the battle. On the other side, 200 demons died. The Grand Marshal was panting heavily, taking support of the sword to stand on his feet. "Is it over?" A general grabbed his shoulders. "Grand Marshal Shi, are you all right?" The 450-year-old supreme being nodded weakly. "It has been a while since I battled so intensely. Need some rest." As he sat down to regulate his breathing and replenish his ether energy reserves, another general ordered the soldiers, "Collect the corpses. At dawn, we will give them a respectful cremation. For that you have to stay alive, human." A voice echoed in the surroundings, changing everyone's expressions immediately. The Grand Marshal, the generals, and the rest of the soldiers raised their heads to look at the sky as a well-dressed man, resembling a nobleman or a scholar at one glance. Outwardly, he does look like a human with scarlet eyes, but the experts with superior sensing abilities could sense that terrifying evil aura emitting from the stranger's body. The Grand Marshal was forced to stand up, raising his sword which started burning in thick Ifrit's flames. "Who are you?" Reaching everyone's visible sight, the demon gave a gentleman's bow. "Grand Marshal Shi, my name is Mephistopheles. You can call me Mephisto. Under the orders of Demon King Aloses, I'm here to exterminate everyone here." Demon King Aloses, who was he? The question appeared in everyone's mind. The generals couldn't help but look at each other. Even the Grand Marshal furrowed his brows. "Are you an ally of Lu Zhen? I have heard about the appearance of a demon in a war between Western Yan and the Phoenix Empire. I knew that Lu Zhen is associated with demons." Mephisto let out a grin. "If you know who that is, you will die of heart stroke, human. Anyway, are you humans ready for round 2? Snap. With a snap of his finger, another portal appeared randomly in the middle of the Imperial Gardens, and demons rushed out once again. This time, all of them are captain-rank demons, each of them having the strength equivalent to that of a 7-Circle Realm spirit warrior. The flames around the Grand Marshal's sword became more intense. He raised the sword, stretching above his head. "Die." He was about to swing it down, but the blade didn't come down. Mephisto was seen teleporting to right above the Grand Marshal and grabbing the blade of the sword with his bare hand. The flames died out with Mephisto's demonic energy soon after. The nearest general attempted to attack Mephisto, but the latter gave a kick to his face without even taking a look at him. The general's face exploded, and blood splattered on the faces of nearby generals as well as the Grand Marshal. Grabbing the blade, Mephisto flew up. The Grand Marshal didn't lose the grip on the sword and flew along, distancing himself from his subordinates and leaving them an opportunity to deal with the demons. The Grand Marshal poured more of his ether energy into the sword, but the flames of Ifrit didn't light up on the blade as it was overwhelmed by demonic energy. He let go of one of his hands on the hilt and attacked Mephisto in the abdomen, unleashing a torrent of flames through his palm. Mephisto's body was struck head-on at a very close range, but the demon simply tilted his head to look straight into the eyes of the old man. "Unfortunately, your power isn't enough, human. Anyway, now it is my turn." He raised his free right arm and stretched forward. The Grand Marshal's facial expression changed. Some of the generals were also about to charge forward at the incoming demon captains, but then a groan escaped from the old man, forcefully grabbing their attention. When they raised their heads, they saw their Grand Marshal's heart was taken out by Mephisto. With a heart in his right hand and the sword in his left, Mephisto looked down at the falling body of the enemy. Grand Marshal is dead, we are doomed. Bless me, O goddess Zih, run away. At once, hundreds of soldiers left their posts and started running away in fear. Chapter 594, The Messenger from Genesis Federation. That night, Emperor Shi and the entire imperial family of the Leon Empire survived, as the demon's objective was never them in the first place. But the palace wasn't so lucky. The grand structures that had stood for centuries were now nothing more than scorched ruins, with bodies of soldiers strewn across the palace grounds. Over 8 generals, more than 200 imperial knights, and thousands of soldiers were killed. The few hundred who survived had run away in fear before the battle had ended. The aftermath was pure chaos. Criminals who had been hiding from the authorities now roamed the streets freely. In the heart of the capital, gangs formed, prisoners escaped, and the city, once the pride of the empire, teetered on the edge of anarchy. A day later, the reinforcements arrived from the border. But while the palace was fortified, the city outside remained unprotected, and criminal activity skyrocketed. It was a city on fire in more ways than one. Inside what remained of the palace walls, Emperor Shi sat surrounded by his ministers and generals. The room was thick with tension. "We're not just dealing with an attack," a general growled, pounding his fist on the table. "The demons targeted us. This was a message." Minister Li, one of the emperor's oldest advisors, nodded gravely. "We need to address this threat swiftly before rebellion spreads like wildfire. The vassal states, they smell blood." Emperor's favorite grandson, Prince Shixuan, stood calmly among the bickering. "But we still don't know who orchestrated this attack. Lu Zhen, demons, someone else." "Lu Zhen," Minister Li exclaimed. "It's obvious. He's been lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. There's been talk of his alliance with demons. Rumors from the Blood Hill Forest are spreading." "Rumors," Shixuan said, cutting him off, "are not evidence. We must act on facts, not whispers." Before another minister could respond, the heavy doors to the chamber creaked open. A guard stepped inside, saluting with urgency. "Your Majesty, there's a messenger at the gates, someone from the Genesis Federation." Silence fell over the room as the ministers exchanged uneasy glances. Genesis Federation was synonymous with Lu Zhen in their minds. "What do they want?" the emperor asked, his voice low and controlled. "The messenger carries a letter, but the guards are holding them outside. The situation is unclear." "A trap, no doubt," one minister snarled. "We should have him executed. Lu Zhen's dogs cannot be trusted." Shixuan stepped forward. "Messengers are immune to punishment, even in war. You all know that. If we act rashly, we'll be no better than the rebels we're trying to control." Minister Li sneered. "Lu Zhen has every reason to be behind this. The Blood Hill Forest are past disputes. He has a motive. He's a snake." "And yet," Xuan countered, "we don't have any proof. Grandfather, we should at least hear the messenger out." Emperor Shi's sharp eyes flicked between the ministers. After a long pause, he nodded once. "Bring the messenger in." Moments later, the large doors swung open again, and in walked Elena, tall, graceful, and impossibly beautiful, her every movement precise. The ministers looked at her with confusion, some whispering in hushed tones. "She's so beautiful," one of the generals muttered under his breath. "For anyone under the supreme realm, she is a beautiful woman who can lure any man into the trap with a simple gaze, and unluckily for them, no supreme realm expert is present in the courtroom. Hence, the fact that she is an android is not known to the people. But some ministers, despite the state of crisis they were in, couldn't help but enjoy the beauty." Without any formal greeting, Elena stopped in the center of the room. Her eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto the emperor. "I carry a message from my master," she said in a soft yet commanding tone. Then, to everyone's shock, her eyes glowed, and a holographic projection materialized from them, floating in midair. Gasps echoed through the room. Not even the most powerful demigods could conjure something like this. In the projection, Lu Zhen sat calmly on a chair. He stared ahead, expression neutral but intense. "Emperor Shi," his voice rang through the room, "you have my sympathies." The ministers shuffled uncomfortably in their seats, glaring at the projection as if Lu Zhen himself stood before them. "I have some idea why the demons attacked your palace," Lu Zhen continued. "They were under orders to search for something precious, something you have. I won't tell you what it is, for obvious reasons, but know this. The demons won't stop until they finish their job. The attacks will become more frequent in the future." The emperor's fists clenched on his throne, his eyes narrowing. Lu Zhen's voice remained calm, calculated. "I can help you in stopping these attacks, but in return, you'll have to acknowledge the Genesis Federation's legitimacy and cede control of Nanjing as compensation for your interference." A murmur spread through the room at the demand. Minister Li's face turned red with anger. "He dares." But Lu Zhen wasn't finished. "And one more thing," he added. "King Qi is now under my protection. Consider your next moves carefully, Emperor. You don't want to add more enemies to your list." The projection flickered, then disappeared, leaving the room heavy with silence. Elena, unfazed by the chaos around her, gave a small bow. "I've delivered my master's message. The decision is yours." With that, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving the imperial court to face the crisis at hand. Once she was gone out of their sight, Minister Li was the first to speak. "He wants us to surrender. Ridiculous. He's behind this. We should prepare for war. Let's activate our spies at the same time and cause suicide attacks all over the place. If we can't directly hurt Lu Zhen, we can destroy his allies at will. It would teach him a lesson." But Xuan's voice cut through the panic. "Grandfather, I think we should think this through. Neither of our parties had yet to declare war on each other. Moreover, if he's telling the truth, there's more at stake than just the demons or the rebellion. Moreover, we still haven't brought the Church of Doom to our side. There is no use in revealing our cards like this." Emperor Shi's gaze never wavered from where the projection had been. "We will not make any rash decisions. Not yet." His voice was calm but carried the weight of authority. Meanwhile, Mark was seen flying above the endless expanse of the ocean. The wind whipped past him, yet his focus remained solely on the holographic screen floating before him. On the screen, a detailed map was displayed with landscapes, cities, and borders meticulously laid out. His current location was marked by a small blue dot, and far ahead of him was his destination, a red dot, pulsing faintly. This was a function developed by ARC, in conjunction with the space station revolving around the planet, up there. He narrowed his eyes at the screen, watching as the blue dot crept closer to its target. "Almost there," he muttered under his breath. His destination was a remote island, completely isolated in the middle of the ocean. No other landmass was visible within a 100-kilometer radius, just endless water as far as the eye could see. Finally, the island came into view. It was barren and desolate with only one defining feature, a volcano, towering over the otherwise empty landscape. The volcano wasn't dormant either. The fiery orange glow of boiling lava bubbled ominously at its base. Dark smoke billowed from its peak, trailing into the sky like a beacon of destruction. Mark hovered in the air, his sharp gaze scanning the rest of the island. No signs of life, no hidden structures, and no indication of anything but volcanic rock and flowing lava. "This is it?" he questioned, his voice laced with curiosity. "No signs of an entrance. Maybe he's hiding underneath." With that thought, his face broke into a small, knowing smile. He was used to things being more complicated than they appeared. Channeling his ether energy, a shimmering scarlet aura enveloped his body, creating a protective barrier between him and the harsh environment below. Without hesitation, he dove straight into the lava, disappearing beneath the molten surface. The lava pressed against him, thick and searing, but his ether shield held firm. He swam deeper, navigating through the fiery liquid as easily as if it were water. Kilometers passed, the heat intensifying with every stroke. The further he went, the more the pressure built, but Mark remained unfazed. After what felt like an eternity, he finally reached his destination, a massive cavern hidden deep beneath the volcano. The cavern was vast, with rivers of magma snaking through the ground like glowing veins, casting an eerie red light on the rocky walls. Mark emerged from the molten stream, landing lightly on the solid ground. His eyes quickly adjusted to the dim, hellish glow of the cavern. It was quiet, save for the occasional crackle of molten rock and the distant gurgling of magma rivers. Then in the distance he saw it, a figure cloaked entirely in shadows, standing still as if waiting for him. The figure's form was hard to make out, its features obscured by darkness, but the immense power radiating from it was unmistakable. Mark's lips curled into a sly smile as he took a step forward, his voice a low whisper to himself. "I've found you, Yan Hai." The figure stirred, the darkness shifting slightly as it heard Mark's whisper. As the aura of darkness dispelled, the Supreme Pontiff of the Church of Doom calmly stared back at Mark. Lu Zhen. Chapter 595. Mark vs. Yan Hai. Yan Hai. Rank low 10 circle max, mid 10 circle. Status humanoid form. Attributes: fire, water, wind, lightning, earth, light, darkness, lava, wood, metal, ice, poison, sound unknown. Bloodline dragon. Affiliation: Western Moon Kingdom. Description: the Supreme Pontiff of the Church of Doom. Mark was quite taken aback to see the list of attributes Yan Hai has mastered. He never met a man who could have so many attributes. Of course, he himself is an exception, but he has the system, so it can be understood that Mark has so many attributes. What did Yan Hai have that he managed to awaken these many? It was then his eyes captured that one word, dragon bloodline, on the details, and suddenly everything made sense for him. Before it wasn't, now it was. Then he remembered that the former emperor of the Tang dynasty, siding with the Supreme Pontiff, passed away, and the blame for his death fell upon his head instead. The power to absorb other people's abilities. The thought came to his head at once. He couldn't help but comment, "You practiced a cultivation technique that lets you absorb the powers of the ones you have defeated." Yan Hai wasn't surprised by Mark's comment. Instead, he let out a smile. "And I'm looking forward to gaining your powers once I kill you, Lu Zhen." Mark didn't take his words seriously and replied, "It's funny that I have a similar ability, although it only works on those with Tier 5 bloodline." Tier 5 bloodline. Yan Hai furrowed his brows. Mark didn't explain and simply shrugged his shoulders. "It doesn't matter. The dragon bloodline you had stolen is insignificant anyway." Yan Hai's frown deepened further by Mark's comment, but then he let out a smirk instead. "If your Blizzard Pegasus bloodline is better, then I'm happy to replace it with the current one." "Oh, do you think so?" Mark raised his eyebrow. Gravity Dome activate. Mark didn't waste in unleashing his most used skill, the Gravity Dome, into the surroundings. Yan Hai went down to his knees at once. Mark slowly walked forward in confidence. Looking down at the kneeling, suppressed enemy from a close distance, Mark coldly asked, "Any last words?" Suddenly, Yan Hai's facial expression changed. The smirk returned to his face one more time as he stretched his arm. "Love you." Shrouded in a dark aura, Yan Hai's hand pierced Mark's stomach. Mark spat out a mouthful of blood, taken aback in surprise, as corrupted energy invaded Mark's insides through Yan Hai's fingers. The Gravity Dome skill was dispelled in an instant, and Mark staggered back a few steps with his hand on the wound. Yan Hai retrieved his hand, smeared by Mark's blood, and got up. He observed his fingers for a second. It looks like you have multiple bloodlines in your body. Interesting." "Ark, what's going on?" Mark found out that his ether energy could not heal his wounds, and this corrupted energy that invaded his system also started spreading rapidly, trying to attack his organs. Most importantly, this strange power is also interfering him to take out weapons from the inventory. For a person who was confident about winning, the setback has really hurt his ego. Just like the system in the past, the artificial intelligence is also quick to analyze his body and give him the needed answer. Ding, The unknown energy has the properties of dampening your powers, Master. Do you authorize me to take over your system for the solution? Yes, please, As Mark felt what it felt to be suppressed of his powers, Yan Hai charged forward and gave a punch to his gut. Mark's physique withstood the pain due to enhanced durability, but the raging corrupted energy inside his body attacked his lungs at once due to the vibration sent by the punch. Coughing out another mouthful of blood, Mark asked as if he was desperate to know the answer more. It is impossible. What energy was that you injected into my body? I can't use my abilities. Yan Hai answered with a confident face. It is the doom energy, Lu Zhen. Your attributes don't matter. Your bloodlines don't matter. Not even your cultivation level doesn't matter. The scene reversed with Mark struggling to breathe, while Yan Hai placed his hand on Mark's chest, continuing to brag. I went a great lengths to please Lord Doom to acquire this power. Only something like cosmic energy can resist this. A mortal human like you can never. Yan Hai's words ended abruptly as golden divine energy gushed out of his body, forming a layer over his skin. His eyes also turned golden and started glowing as a smile appeared on his face. Thanks for the info, Yan Hai. Yan Hai's facial expression was frozen. Divine energy. Activate antimatter blast. In an instant, large amounts of concentrated antimatter energy conjured above his palm in the form of a sphere before it was launched at the enemy. Yan Hai couldn't evade the attack, for it was too close. He was struck and blasted away in the air. Mark then swiftly summoned the divine throne from the inventory, placing it on the ground and sitting on it, unleashing an ability of the throne. Ding, your stats are increased by 2 points. Activate Divine Shield. A piercing scream filled with pain emerged from Yan Hai's mouth as the antimatter was about to explode inside. He tried using his doom energy to suppress it. Mark could also see Yan Hai transformed into a humanoid dragon covered by energy layers of lightning, fire, water, etc. All of them acting together managed to suppress the antimatter energy, but not enough to destroy it. As a demigod, Yan Hai knew very well what might happen if he tried to destroy it with force. Moreover, he was also aware that he didn't have much time. The best way for him is to kill his enemy as fast as possible and absorb his powers, so that this foreign energy will become his asset instead. Lu Zhen. An enraged Yan Hai charged down at Mark, covered by a glowing golden barrier. As Yan Hai's strongest attack, a concentrated beam of doom energy struck the divine shield generated by the throne. Couldn't do any damage. Mark couldn't help but let out an arrogant smirk, crossing his legs. Your doom or whatever energy is something I didn't expect to hurt me earlier, but now that I'm prepared, there is nothing you can do right now to prevent your death. Then I will kill you before that happens. Yan Hai lost his cool. His humanoid dragon form slowly evolved to a giant red dragon and opened its mouth. A sea of black flames powered up by tried to destroy the divine shield. While nothing happened to it, the ground beneath Mark, however, started to melt down. Mark, whose ether energy reserves were steadily increasing, waited for at least more than half a minute as the ground around him melted, and magma rose to his feet. Meanwhile, Yan Hai, who was on the brink of his death, not to mention in his beast form, only became more enraged and evolved even further, developing a third eye on his forehead that merged all the attributes he had to release a white beam of concentrated energy. Ding, an unknown energy is detected. The artificial intelligence set him the notification as the divine shield started cracking with the assault of the white beam. Mark was, however, calm. Arc, check my ether reserves, he responded with an order. Ding, at 52%. Good, dismiss the divine shield. Ding, warning, risk of death significantly rises. Just do it, Mark turned serious. The cracking divine shield was dispelled at once, letting the white beam come at him. It was just about to strike him but stopped right when it was about to strike the empty throne. The white beam bent itself, making a U-turn and went toward the dragon instead. Mark, who teleported to the dragon's behind, pushed forth his hand, unleashing another skill of his, Activate Singularity. A tiny dot appeared on his palm, creating an enormous amount of suction force, bending the space in front of it, and swallowing up the dragon in a second. Yanhai didn't even know what hit him before he found himself trapped in a dimension with everything pressing him on all sides. As he tried to protect himself in the black hole, the antimatter energy broke its prison and released 30 exajules of energy at once. Not even a speck of cell tissue belonging to Yanhai remained in the end, and to Mark's ignorance, even Yanhai's soul was also exterminated. However, it was so high that singularity was destroyed on its own, and the remnant energy leaked to the outside world. Much of it formed like a beam of energy that made a hole in the walls, and some of it affected Mark, injuring his hand in the process too. Fortunately, it was only like second-degree burns. Ding, you completed one of the quests left by the system. Eliminate the new threat. Cosmic Essence Absorption has been added to your skill list. Ding, due to the complete destruction of the target, Primeval Bloodline fails to extract the Essence of Doom. Oh, I didn't know this was interested in attributes too. Maybe it was because it was special, but anyway, what's done is done. And now, only 2 quests are left to be finished before I leave this planet. With the confirmation from the artificial intelligence, Mark dismissed the singularity and flew out of the volcano in peace. Chapter 596, Mephisto Attack Again. 1 week later. Imperial City, Leon Empire. 3 Supreme Realm experts, the leaders of Iron Thunder Sect, Celestial Crane Sect, and Scarlet Lotus Sect, gathered at the Imperial Palace on the Emperor's invitation. These 3 sects stand on top of the cultivation world, within the borders of the Leon Empire. They were also considered top 5 in the whole continent, and the Scarlet Lotus Sect was even in the top 10 in the entire world. For ages, sects have stayed away from matters of the material world. Whether the Leon Empire collapses or not has nothing to do with them. And if they use their strength to meddle in the affairs of the Empire, the other sects would combine their strength to wipe out the sect that broke the rules. They intended to stay away this time too, but the fact that demons were involved in this mess forced these righteous sects to come to Emperor Shi's aid. Several of their sect elites were stationed on the palace grounds alongside the troops from the vassal states. Apart from this bunch, there were also mercenary groups from various guilds of the empire gathered to protect the palace. Due to their rivalry in the past, they didn't mix with each other and had their own set of groups, camping out in the dim-lit grounds. 5 young men, a monk, a warrior, a noble, a masked swordsman, and an assassin, were having dinner together, sitting around a small campfire. This is a mercenary group that traveled all the way from the Black Tortoise continent. Not much there is known about them, apart from the fact that 4 of them are Exalt Realm experts, and the masked swordsman seemed like he doesn't even have any ether energy at all. While the 4 young men were having wine and laughing together, the masked man was sitting slightly a bit away from the group and just staring at the campfire in silence. Assassin, Brother Zio, do you think the demon's going to attack this midnight? Masked man, no doubt about it. According to the info I gathered from the servants, the demon general clearly told the second prince that they would return 3 days later, after sparing his life. Warrior, the demons aren't some righteous beings that will keep their words. They will attack when we least expect it. Monk, but the enemy is powerful enough to take out the former supreme commander. Those with strength and authority rarely lie. Moreover, it is a fact that they have attacked 3 times so far and still yet to attack the imperial family members or the ones hiding in the palace, and also the ones that escaped the premises of the palace. This says something. Warrior, what if the second prince was colluding with the demons? He was, after all, the only one who survived so far. Noble, I highly doubt that. The second prince isn't a politician. He is more of a warrior. He is also very righteous, unlike those false righteous sect disciples. Assassin, by the way, your friend was awfully silent today. Is he in a bad mood or something? Warrior, probably nervous. Noble, him, nervous. Don't make me laugh. Did you forget how Brother Zai alone took down that sea beast while we were on our way? Warrior, I really wonder where he comes from. You always try to change the subject whenever we ask about his past, Brother Zio. Assassin. Even more surprising is that on his request, you actually brought us here, willing to work with these righteous sects which you hate to the core. Warrior. Sometimes, I wonder why he hides his face. I never saw his face even once during the past few weeks. Monk. I know what he looks like. Assassin. Warrior. You do. Monk. You could say he looks like a human, just a bit otherworldly. Noble. Seriously, I don't know his objective either. I believe there is something Brother Zai was looking for. Warrior. Forget about his past for a second. Tell us about yours, Brother Zio. You still haven't told us what kind of beef you had with the righteous sects. Monk. From what we know so far, you are the heir of Zio Manor which you inherited through your mother, but have the knowledge of techniques from the Nether sect, which no longer exist, and hate the righteous sects. It would perfectly make sense if your father is from the Nether sect and killed by the righteous sects. Noble. Keep on writing the stories, Baldy. You won't get anything from me. Warrior. Come on, what would sharing your past do bad for you? We went through so many life-and-death situations. You don't have to keep it mysterious from us. Masked Man. Such cheeky dialogues won't suit your personality, Li Zhu. Warrior's worth a try. Monk. Anyway, let's get to the business. Our aim is to take out the captain-level demons, and we shall approach it with our isolated method. Listen carefully, Brother Shen. Assassin. Monk. Brother Zio is versed in sealing techniques. He'll be the first one to attack. Then, Brother Li, Warrior, and I will. All of a sudden, the sounds of some kind of insect were heard all over the place, instantly alerting everyone stationed on the grounds. They got up with their weapons as a portal appeared in the sky. This time, a horde of demons didn't rush out like before. Instead, it was just one demon. The scholarly dressed demon Mephisto came out alone and looked down at thousands of warriors gathered to fight him. With a quick scan of the field, he let out a smirk. Weaklings gathered one more time. This time, they should be taught a thorough lesson. Mephisto summoned the flaming sword, which he snatched away from the Grand Marshal in the first attack a week ago, and raised it above his head. The flames grew brighter and more intense. "Everyone, get into the formation," shouted a general. The elite soldiers rushed toward the general, who never expected this demon general to take action in person this time. It was at this moment 3 artifacts. One resembled a round shield, one resembled a 7-layered pagoda, and the last one a crown, suddenly shot from different directions and trapped Mephisto in a prism-shaped prison. It happened quite instantly. The latter calmly looked at them and then shifted his gaze to his surroundings. 3 old men, having the demeanor of experts, were seen floating in the sky, appearing in different directions and surrounding the demon. It's Grand Master Zai, Venerable Yu and Venerable Nai. Chapter 597, A Mysterious Savior with Name, Alan. The demon is trapped. Guys, don't relax. The demon is a demigod. You can't underestimate it, and demon horde could attack us anytime. Mephisto gazed at one of the sect leaders and grinned. Never expected one of the demon contractors would make a move against me. Sect Master Nai. The other 2 couldn't help but glance at their ally. Nai Zhaoyang, with a grim face, said, stretching his arms, "The demon will spout any nonsense to escape. Don't waste time and kill it before it summons the demon horde." The other 2 nodded and stretched their arms. 2, pouring ether energy into their respective artifacts, which responded by gathering huge amounts of natural energy to form a concentrated beam of energy, and struck the demon general at the same time. A blinding flash of light enveloped the demon general as the beams of energy continuously struck him. The disciples, soldiers, and mercenaries just stared at the spectacle in awe. The power generated by the artifacts generated so much power that spirit warriors could sense their souls tremble in fear. Eventually, the flames around Mephisto's sword died out, and the sect leaders could no longer sense the life in the target enveloped by the flash of light. It's over. Even they couldn't believe what they sensed and looked at each other in surprise. It was at that moment a whisper of a voice entered their ears, disappointing. Akla Pache. The sect leaders had their eyes widened as blades of demonic energy pierced their backs at the same time. They stiffly moved their heads to the side, glancing at their behind. They saw Mephisto clones floating behind them with a grin on their faces. At once, the entire place became silent. Everyone silently gazed at the sky where the three sect leaders started falling down with the artifacts, freeing the original. Panic spread everywhere. Some mercenaries and soldiers opted out of the battle and tried running away. However, this time, they couldn't escape. An invisible barrier blocked their path. Meanwhile, the sect disciples with their elders were prepared to take revenge for their sect masters, even though they knew they didn't have any chance. Looking down at the humans, the demon general mumbled, "This time, my domain will force you to stay inside and die." After launching another barrier over the palace, Mephisto once again raised the sword, pouring his demonic energy into the flames, creating a demonic flaming bird in the process. Die. Screech. Letting out a piercing screech, the demonic phoenix flew down toward the ground as the sect disciples shot their spells at it. The phoenix was invincible against the attacks launched at it, which were rendered useless. "It's over, we are dead. We can't even escape. Why did I bother accepting the offer, that damn old bastard? He was living fine in the palace and killing us." Screech. The demonic phoenix charged left and right, randomly at its targets, turning them into ash instantly with a single touch. Meanwhile, more and more spirit warriors launched attacks at the energy beast, but as if it was invincible against their attacks, none hurt it a bit. Screams of terror and pain echoed all over the premises of the palace, the number of people getting lesser and lesser as they were turning into ashes. "Damn it, this time we have gone for good," commented the warrior before grabbing the noble's collar and jumping to the side, evading the phoenix that zoomed past them. The demonic phoenix struck another group, generating a huge explosion, and threw off the four of them that originally stuck with each other but were now separated by the explosion. "Love you." The noble groaned in pain, trying to get up, but the demonic phoenix suddenly made a U-turn and specifically came for him, for some unknown reason. Mephisto raised an eyebrow at the strange behavior of the flaming bird. It then flew into the air, and then dived down toward him. "I shouldn't have listened to that bastard. What about my revenge? Damn it. That guy is also nowhere to be seen. Will I die without being able to do anything?" Several thoughts came to Xiao Chu's face as he stared at the descending phoenix. The monk suddenly came between the noble and the phoenix, using all of his ether energy into his Wuji staff, releasing the azure water energy in the form of a wingless dragon. "Come on." "Baldy, no, get away," Xiao Chu shouted, but the monk turned deaf ears to his scream. He motioned his staff toward the descending phoenix. The demonic phoenix opened its mouth as it met the wingless water dragon. The latter was destroyed instantly, and it went down to strike the monk. Just as it was about to strike him, threads of golden energy came from behind the monk and captured its beak. This isn't a light attribute. This is divine energy." Mephistopheles cast a glance at the source, spotting a masked individual standing there with a broadsword in his right hand and releasing golden energy threads through his left hand. The masked warrior clenched his left fist, merging all the golden threads into one thick golden rope before raising his arm and swinging it away. The demonic phoenix was raised into the air and blasted away, halting everyone's movements for a moment and turning their attention to their savior. "Brother Xiao Chu's face lit up by his timely save. Screech. The demonic phoenix that found its balance let out an angrier screech this time, before focusing solely on the one that attacked it earlier. As the demonic phoenix flapped its wings, increasing the intensity of its scarlet flames even more as it charged at the masked warrior, the latter stood his ground and waited until it approached him. And when it did, he raised his left arm, releasing golden threads of energy one more time, this time, enveloping all over its body. The phoenix was suspended in the air by the golden energy threads without being able to move, and the masked warrior then flew into the air and swung down the broadsword. A swing from the sword released an arc of divine energy, slicing the demonic phoenix into two parts and dispelling the magic entirely. Cheers erupted for a moment as the demonic phoenix disappeared from everyone's sight, changing Mephisto's facial expression, who was merely staring at the battle from the sky. The masked warrior then slowly walked to the noble and lent a hand to him. As Xiao Chu took his hand and got up, the masked warrior spoke while casting a glance to the sky. "I can't defeat him alone. I need your help, my partner." Hesitation drew on Xiao Chu for a second. The monk behind him asked in wonder, "What do you mean by that?" Xiao Chu turned his head to look at Mephisto and then at the masked individual. "All right." As Xiao Chu nodded, the masked warrior raised his hand. Mystical symbols started appearing all over his palm, one after another. The monk then saw the masked warrior strike Xiao Chu's chest out of nowhere. The latter flew into the air, coughing out blood and shocking the nearby others. "Zai-Tianyu," the monk roared in anger. "Shhh," the masked warrior pointed the finger at the flying Xiao Chu. The supposedly noble of the Zizhai Empire suddenly burst into flames. As they died in a couple of seconds, he saw a beast in place of his friend, a giant stag with the wings of a bird. "Puritan," Mephisto frowned at the sight of transformation. The masked warrior took off his mask as he landed on top of the beast, which flew directly to the demon general. "A Puritan and a half-celestial. Who are you?" Mephisto asked curiously. Looking straight at him, the stranger answered, pointing the sword at the demon. "I go by the name Zai-Tianyu, but you can call me Alan." Chapter 598, Eye of Nezha. Late in the night, Mark was sleeping comfortably without any occasional baby cries for the past few hours. He was in the middle of a dream where he managed to build a god-killing cannon, which utilizes the power of a star and launches concentrated beams of energy at the enemies. With the cosmic essence absorption skill, which he got as a reward for completing the mission of killing the Supreme Pontiff of the Church of Doom as a departing gift from the system, he could absorb the energy from the stars, planets, and even black holes to refine it to make his. Ever since he acquired that cultivation technique, Mark started dreaming of building such a cannon, which could shoot targets from planets away. He was having a similar dream today too, but it remained incomplete this time as the abrupt knocks on the door woke him up. As Mark got out to open the door, Elena was seen standing outside. Who is it?" Song Yue asked in her sleepy tone. "Honey, it's nothing important, you sleep." Mark slowly closed the door and looked at Elena. "What is it?" he asked. The android answered, "Bad news. Mephisto was dead." "Mephisto died?" Mark furrowed his brows in seriousness. "He is an immortal realm demon. Even with the world's suppression, there's no force on this planet that could possibly kill him apart from me. What happened?" Elena's blue eyes glowed for a second before projecting an image. "According to the images downloaded from the satellite, it looks like we have a formidable enemy." The image was kind of blurry, and Mark couldn't see the face of the person or the beast standing beside him, but he did manage to see the golden energy enveloping the large sword the warrior was carrying, which was pointing at the fallen Mephisto. Elena went on projecting many images, but nothing gave away the identity of the attacker. Mark said, "Pass the message to King Qi about postponing our attack. It's best if I take care of this unknown warrior before thinking of any other strategies. Find out everything about him." "Understood." As Elena left him, Mark couldn't help but wonder, who is this mysterious expert that Emperor Shi managed to hire, or was he just passing by? Meanwhile, at Lian Empire's imperial palace, Zai-Tianyu was in private attendance with Emperor Shi and the sixth prince, while Xiao Chu was with his friends who became awkward with him. "No, I'm not here to meddle in the affairs between the two empires, Emperor Shi. I'm only here to take away my sister with me." Zai-Tianyu refused the emperor's offer to become the empire's supreme guardian. "But didn't you say that your sister has supposedly been snatched away by Lu Zhen?" The sixth prince pointed out the problem. "I believe you were aware of the protection shield over Genesis City, which wouldn't let an outsider enter the city without the palace's permission. Moreover, there are several demigod realm beings in that place. Moreover, Lu Zhen is not that simple. If he could manage to bring 4 demigod beasts to his side, you can imagine how strong he was. Whatever rumors circulated all over the world about him, I'm afraid he is stronger than that. It won't be easy for you to invade that place and take your sister by force. Zai Tianyu nodded in agreement. I'm aware of it, Prince Shi. Or else I would have already gone there to take away my sister. I have been looking for a certain treasure. Quite coincidentally, it was hidden in this city. As long as I can attain it, I might be able to dispel the world's suppression of me. They won't be of any concern. A treasure in this city? Emperor, Shi raised his eyebrow. He couldn't help but remember Mark's message a while back. Lu Zhen was also talking about it. He said the demons were looking for something and wouldn't stop until they acquired it. What is the treasure you were looking for? Zai Tianyu answered without hiding anything. It's called the Eye of Nezha. It should be in the form of an amulet with an emerald eye embedded in it. If you can get me the treasure, I'll do a favor for you too. Consider the killing of that demon as a gift. Horde. The emperor and his grandson reacted at the same time, as they were taken aback by surprise. Zai Tianyu sensed the change in their emotions and questioned them. Don't tell me you knew the item. The 6th prince then reached to his neck and suddenly took out an amulet, which matches the exact description of this savior mentioned. It's this item. It's with you all along. Zai Tianyu was visibly taken aback, reaching out for the amulet as the 6th prince offered it to him. Taking a closer look at the amulet, Zai Tianyu said, "Yes, it is the one." "Ooh, this belonged to my daughter," Emperor Shi told him. He further added, "She received it as a betrothal gift from her husband, which was supposedly his ancestral treasure, and later I passed it to my grandson as a memento of his late parents." Zai Tianyu couldn't hide his smile as he commented, "I guess it was indeed a good thing I intervened in your battle, or else I wouldn't have found this ancient artifact." He looked back at the old man. "Emperor Shi, tell me, how should I repay you? State your wish. As long as you don't ask me to stay here, I will do my best to fulfill it. I would even kill Lu Zhen if you want. I have heard nothing but bad things about him anyway." Emperor Shi cast a sidelong glance at the 6th prince and said, "I might have certain wishes to ask, but it is a fact that the artifact belonged to my grandson. It is his right." After exchanging meaningful gazes, the prince immediately said, "Just one thing. I need you to destroy a facility located on an island. It's Lu Zhen's secret weapon manufacturing facility." "Huh?" Emperor Shi frowned, looking at his grandson. He was expecting different, like killing Lu Zhen actually. More than the demon invasions or whatever, he was more worried about the southern neighbor that could end his dynasty for good. "Oh, tell me about its specs," said Zai Tianyu, suddenly becoming interested in the topic. The 6th prince explained, "Lu Zhen brought an abomination to this world, your grace. I believe you already know about the existence of firearms and his invincible under-demigod robotic army. Through our information network, we found that it is that mysterious facility located on Fujian Island that is the source of his weapons. We destroy it, we would take off Genesis Federation's limbs." Robots? Firearms? Zai Tianyu's reaction of surprise was out of the prince's expectations. "I seem to have heard of them before. SSS." He hissed in pain, grabbing his head for a moment as flashes of some blurred memories came to his head. The emperor and his grandson couldn't help but exchange glances, wondering what was going on. "I accept your request." He rose to his feet with a determined face. "Give me the location. I'll destroy it right away before leaving for my destination." Meanwhile, in another room, in a royal guest room, Zio Chu was explaining his story to whom he considered his friends. "Well, that is how I escaped from the clutches of the righteous sects and ended up in a contract with Brother Zai. However, since I'm neither a demigod nor have a cosmic bloodline like a dragon or phoenix, I can only maintain this human form with his unique sealing method. After that, he went somewhere and I had to live somehow. So I created this Zio Chu persona and created a non-existent minor noble family. It's not that I want to come here, but I have no choice but to follow Brother Zai's orders." "Warrior." Assassin. Monk, well, we can understand where you are coming from, but it is a lot to take, brother Zio. Well, now that we know that you are a bloodthirsty beast of the nether sect. Zio Chu, Sai, forget it. It is foolish of me to think you people are any different. He left the guest room, closing the door with force. Chapter 599.1 Zai Tianyu's Attack at the Factory, Part 1. Fujian Island, Western Moon Kingdom. It was a regular day at the factory. Arc Prime was working on creating a new generation of robots. Arc Secundus was building a supercomputer from scratch. Arc Tertius was working on upgrading Song Missile, while other artificial intelligence-controlled robots were busy with weapons manufacturing at a rapid pace. Meanwhile, the factory guardian Jingwei was training with Mark's sister, Shang Jiao. Both of them have been spending in this factory testing grounds because of its self-repairing feature, and not to mention, it won't attract anyone's attention and let them go all out. With her icy wings spread widely, Shang Jiao waved her magic staff, turning icy feathers into spikes and attacking her opponent. Jingwei was moving at high speeds, evading them with ease. As Shang Jiao continued to attack her, a sudden vibration felt all over the factory, interrupting their battle. An attack! The girls exchanged glances at each other after the second vibration that was generated from the ceiling. Let's go out and see. As both of them rushed out of the testing grounds, Arc Prime spotted them and stopped them. Wait, it's not safe, he warned. What happened? The princess asked. Arc Prime answered. A domain has been conjured over the region. My connection to the master has been temporarily severed. It should be a demigod, not an opponent either of you can face. But our defensive barrier has been activated. You would be safe as long as you stay in this facility. Not a problem. I can teleport to Papa as we were contracted by blood and soul. It is not something a demigod can disconnect with a domain, said Jingwei. After returning to his mindscape, I'll inform Papa. That seems like a valid approach, Arc Prime, the rank 9 intelligent robot, agreed with her idea. Jiao Jiao, I will be back. Jingwei gave a subtle nod to her only friend and closed her eyes, trying to connect to Mark. She opened her eyes after a few seconds with a frown on her face. I can't seem to connect with Papa either. Why? Arc Prime replied, the domain's power should have exceeded the power of the demigod realm, but it is not necessary that the enemy is in the immortal realm. Or else, the factory's defenses shouldn't have blocked the attacks, or it could have been because the enemy is testing our defenses. For confirmation, we have to go out and scan the domain and the enemy by ourselves. So what now? Shang Jiao looked at the robot, while a few more AI-powered robots gathered on the spot. Arc Tertius said, as long as we can finish the upgrade of the Song II missile, it will be possible to make a hole through the domain and form a connection with Master. After all, it was designed to tear through space in the first place. Hence, it can do the same with the domain too. How long do you need? Asked Shang Jiao. She has yet to get used to this complex stuff about firearms and missiles or whatever new terms they are, but at the very least she had confidence in these robots. Arc Tertius' eyes glowed for a second and it replied, estimated time to finish, based on the current pace of development, 41 days. 41 days, the ladies let out a gasp. Arc Prime then said, it can be reduced to less than 10 hours with the assistance from Lady Shang Jiao. Me? Shang Jiao's eyes widened and she pointed at herself in surprise. How? Arc Prime answered, the orb of time. If we maximize its output and keep its range minimum enough to cover the building site, we can slow down the time by 100 times. But slowing down the time by 100 times, even in such a concentrated area, isn't easy. Shang Jiao has never accomplished such a feat. She was worried about the enormous strain on her soul. After thinking deeply, she nodded with a hardened face. All right, if this is the only way to survival, let's do it. Arc Prime then said, meanwhile I, Arc Secundus and Arc Quartus will try to distract the enemy. You three? Shang Jiao raised her eyebrow. Even if you are supposedly at rank 9 and able to fight a supreme realm on your own, you are not even a match to me, much less the enemy. Arc Secundus replied, "That's because the Master has prohibited us from using our attribute powers against young Miss. If we only focus on using attribute powers, we could distract the enemy for a while." Meanwhile, outside the factory, Zai Tianyu was seen floating in the sky with a deep frown on his face. "Damn it. No wonder that Prince asked me to take care of this factory instead of taking care of Lu Zhen. Such building in this lower plane of existence would indeed cause an imbalance of power. Or maybe he already anticipated that I would have to fight with Lu Zhen either way. But a new problem has arrived now. If I can't even break through this building's defenses, would I be able to break through Lu Zhen's defenses? Let's just go all out." Pouring a large amount of his ether energy into the amulet hanging around his neck, which further empowered the broadsword in his hand, Zai Tianyu raised it above his head. Just as he was about to swing it down, suddenly, the gravity in the surroundings increased abruptly. The pressure on his body was so great that Zai Tianyu started falling at a rapid pace. Once he landed on the ground, he started resisting the 100 times the gravity on his body, making sure to stand upright as 3 robots exited the factory and went into action almost simultaneously. What? Robots? A blurry memory came to Zai Tianyu, causing a headache. Spatial distortion. Lightning beam. At once, the space around Zai Tianyu started distorting, crushing him with spatial pressure. For a moment, Zai Tianyu felt an invisible force squeezing his body, pulling away his skin in all directions. As he focused on resisting this effect, the robot shot a concentrated beam of lightning through its palms. They pierced his body and made a large hole in the middle of his chest. Almost instantly, divine energy flew out of his body and recovered his peak stage while a golden aura enveloped his body, nullifying the effects of spatial distortion on his body. The eyes behind the mask also turned golden, with no visible pupils. Zai Tianyu charged forward at once and swung the sword at Arc Quartus, who was the nearest. The robot was split into 2 parts, falling to the ground. Chapter 600.2 Zai Tianyu's Attack at the Factory Part 2. Suicide Mode Activate. Arc Prime didn't hesitate to switch to panic mode. As soon as he found his comrade fell down to the sword of the enemy in one move. Arc Prime has gravity control, and Arc Secundus has spatial powers. Together, they worked on stalling the enemy, not by facing head-on separately, but by merging their energies to create bigger attacks. As Arc Prime placed his hand on Arc Secundus, supplying him with inexhaustible amounts of energy at the behest of damaging his core, the latter managed to activate the strongest skill he inherited from Mark, the Singularity. However, Arc Secundus' Singularity is different from Mark's. Unlike Mark, who activates it at the center of his palm, the robot activates the skill using its core. The Singularity radiated a wave of immense energy, creating a whirlpool of pulling force that threatened Zai Tianyu's life. Zai Tianyu tried resisting it, but this time, his divine aura didn't help him much, and due to the distance being so small between them, the pull was so strong that he was sucked into the robot's core, finding himself in a space where immense force is crushing him to death. His vision started to get blurry. Meanwhile, strange visions from the past started appearing in his head. They weren't linear but random fragments from here and there. One time he was a kid, another time he was a teenager, but every memory had one common factor. "Bro, look at my grades. I got first in the grade." Say, "Lately, I'm forgetting what our parents looked like. Where did you put the album our grandpa gave it to you?" "I had a crush on this girl, but I'm worried that she might reject going for prom with me." Hey, don't sell yourself short. Those Macs or Rich, they are just spoiled brats of wealthy families who always like to bully others and use their family's authority. If the girl falls for their charms, then she isn't the right one for you. "Bro, do you think I should propose to her? Just do it, Al." "Al, don't you dare run away by yourself and disappear on me like that. Do you know how much I was worried? I'm this close to pulling a machine gun on Max when he tried threatening me with your name." "This is where our parents are buried, Al. Sorry for lying to you all this while. Sit down a bit. I'll tell you how they really died." "Brother, don't go. In the news, they all said that the research facility will be the target of the enemies. I had to go, Al. This research is important for me. There are millions of lives at stake here. No matter what, we have to complete the bomb and stop this war. Until then, you stay with Aunt Sally. Be careful. And don't worry, we work in a secret facility, not the one those terrorists claim to fire at. No, my brother is not a betrayer. You must be mistaken. Where did you hide him? I want to meet him. Throw him out. Zai Tianyu abruptly opened his eyes, letting out a gasp. He didn't know how long it had passed and what memories he was experiencing earlier that he never had before, but first things first, he needed to get out of the place. With his divine energy trying its best to negate the pressure from all sides, the amulet on his neck glowed as an enormous amount of energy flew into it, once again, giving him momentary resistance against the world laws. Letting out a roar, he expelled his ether energy on all sides of his body. At once the core exploded, and the robot Arc Secundus blasted into pieces. Arc Prime pushed away and crashed to the ground. System failure, system failure, system failure. Proceed with suicide mode. Errors rang in Arc Prime's ears as Zai Tianyu got out and reclaimed his sword. Suicide mode activate. Arc Prime instantly made its choice, activating the suicide mode, a function that's actually an inbuilt one. Its rank was forcibly raised by 1 as its already 35% damaged core was consuming too much energy from the surroundings, reaching its half-life state almost in a second. With only less than a minute before the process of disintegration started, Arc Prime charged forward, unleashing Gravity Dome for a few hundred meters around it and increasing the gravitational force by 500 times at once, within its limits. Zai Tianyu was pressed to the ground for a moment before the divine energy gushed out to negate the effects. However, before he gets to stand properly, Arc Prime manages to reach him while conjuring a gravity blade in its hands. It stabbed him in the chest, piercing the blade into his body. Arg! Zai Tianyu couldn't help but let out a painful scream, but managed to control it and stabbed the sword at the robot's neck. This time, the blade couldn't penetrate through its body, leaving behind a scratch and sparks of heat. Arc Prime, meanwhile, consumed enormous amounts of graviton particles from the gravity dome into its eyes, unleashing a concentrated beam of energy. Damn it, if it hits me at this close, I might die. Zai Tianyu realized that he couldn't get the blade out of his body. Hence, he expelled as much ether energy as he could from his body, intending to blast away the robot. However, Arc Prime resisted it with full effect. The energy layer over its body was pushed away. Its body melted slowly, but the robot persisted in completing the skill. Just as it was about to launch the beam, the energy dissipated on its own, and its glowing blue robotic eyes became gray. The gravity blade also disappeared, freeing Zai Tianyu and taking him by surprise. Arc Prime became still. Zai Tianyu looked at it closely, realizing that the robot stopped functioning. He pushed it with his palm, and it fell to the ground. Phew, that was so close. He couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief before sitting on the ground in a lotus position, replenishing his lost ether energy by swallowing a scarlet-colored potion and meditating. 5 minutes have gone by, and his body has reached its peak state. Zai Tianyu set his eyes on the factory. Meanwhile, inside the factory, Shang Jiao was trying her best to control the orb of time, slowing down time by 100 times within the building section of the factory, as Arc Tertius was in the middle of working, building the warhead. He suddenly pauses for a second and comments, "Arc Prime is also dead, young miss." Shang Jiao asks in worry, "How long do we have?" The robot replies, "So far, only 60.7 hours have been passed here. Still need 923 hours by estimation." "I'll go," Jingwei volunteered to stall the time. To which Shang Jiao stopped her. "No, you can't. 3 of them combined only managed to stall for 36 minutes. There's no way you can stop the enemy." "Then what should we do? Wait for him to destroy this place dear to my papa." Jingwei rushed to the exit. Shang Jiao tried to stop her, but the robot reminded her to focus. "No, this can't go on. There is only one way to solve this. I need to slow down more, she mumbled, clenching her fist. Arcturus replied to that. Theoretically, it is impossible, young miss. You have to be in the demigod realm to go past your current limits. All right then, I will just do that. The 16-year-old steeled her determination.